What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 2SS Chapter 26 The Name of the Ferocious Ape 026 The Name of the Vicious Ape. The pirates obviously had it planned. After all, now, both Vice Captain Fair and Captain Hughes have died in the hands of Yang Hao. Facing such a strong man, how could these pirates dare to say no? Yang Hao was not surprised by this situation. In the simulation, he conquered the Hughes pirates in this way. It's just that now that it has become a reality, a lot of details have to be dealt with. Thinking of this, Yang Hao returned to his human form and asked, "Who is the captain? Come over to me." In the crowd, 6 people immediately jumped up and quickly ran to Yang Hao. Yang Hao glanced at the 6 people and nodded. He already knew that the Hughes pirates had a total of 7 pirate ships, and each pirate ship had a captain. Originally there were 7, but after Amaha's death, there were only 6 captains left. Yang Hao immediately said to the 6 people, "You 6, deal with the scene immediately, and then take me back to the pirate ship." Soon, the scene was cleared, and Yang Hao, surrounded by pirates, headed for the coast. After Yang Hao and others left, what happened here spread quickly. What? The murderer who killed the auxiliary ship of the Hughes pirates was found, but Hughes is also dead. Am I mistaken? That's one-eyed Shoes, with a bounty of 40 million Baileys. How could I be mistaken? I was at the scene with my own eyes. It was a monster. No wonder it's called a murderous ape. It's so cruel. The message soon reached the local gang. As a gang manager, Raymond was immediately shocked. Is it really that ferocious ape? It is worth mentioning that the last time Yang Hao 10 million yuan and beat people away, Raymond had already reported it. The Capone family also recorded this incident. It's just that no one was sent to support. After all, the losses on Raymond's side were not very big. If we send people across the ocean, we will suffer heavy losses. Of course, even so, Lei Meng was secretly paying attention to Yang Hao's messages. He inquired about it and found that Yang Hao was not famous at all. But Raymond is not in a hurry. In his opinion, such a person will never be too low-key. Sure enough. Just as he thought, in less than 2 or 3 days, another message came from Yang Hao. But this time, it was him who killed the auxiliary ship of the Hughes pirates. After hearing this news, Raymond couldn't help but feel a little lucky. Fortunately, he did not completely conflict with Yang Hao. Otherwise, with the manpower they have here, they really are no match for Yang Hao. What happened next also confirmed his thoughts. Even if Shu Si came in person, he was actually destroyed by Yang Hao. The ferocious ape, where did this guy come out of, and he's so fierce? Raymond came back to his senses and started to feel scared. The strength of the Hughes pirates can already be compared with their Capone family. Now it fell into the hands of Yang Hao. If this is the case, doesn't it mean that if Yang Hao deals with the Capone family, he can win? No, we have to report the situation here to the family. Otherwise, we will be completely unprepared when that vicious ape comes knocking on our door. Raymond also has some abilities. Although Yang Hao has not continued to fight against them, the previous incident can be regarded as creating some tension. Being prepared for it can be considered a precautionary measure. Besides, now that the Hughes pirates have been defeated by Yang Hao, such a major event should also be reported. In addition to the Capone family, the rest of the gangs and even the pirates had their eyes and ears here, and they soon learned about Yang Hao and the Hughes pirates. In this way, Yang Hao's name of Vicious Ape quickly spread in West Blue. Yang Hao has no knowledge of these situations for the time being. Of course, even if he knew about it, he wouldn't care. Now his strength is enough to run rampant in West Blue. It is foreseeable that after receiving the wealth of the Hughes pirates, they will only become stronger. In this way, there is no need to be too low-key here at West Blue. Returning to the coast, Yang Hao soon saw the pirate ship of the Hughes pirates. The auxiliary boat has disappeared. It was probably driven away by someone after Yang Hao left. On the contrary, in the simulation, the 6 pirate ships that besieged Yang Hao were all staying on the coast safely. Yang Hao's eyes lit up. "I'm going to get rich again," he murmured, unable to hide his smile. This time he came in a hurry, naturally for the money that Hughes left on the ship. Fair's auxiliary ship already has 200 million belly. The 6 ships of Hughes, including the main ship, must have more money, right? Thinking of this, Yang Hao smiled even more. Speaking of which, Hughes can be regarded as a timely help. Before his attack, Yang Hao had almost spent all his money. Now that he has his inheritance, he can give himself a good return of blood. With this money, there is no doubt that Yang Hao's power can go further. Next, Hughes did not disappoint Yang Hao, after some inventory. The result is that the money on the ship is 300 million belly. Another good news is that the money was actually more. But because Hughes purchased a lot of weapons and equipment before coming here, he spent 200 million. In other words, Hughes's total assets, excluding the auxiliary ship, are as high as 500 million. Knowing this, Yang Hao couldn't help but feel refreshed. The previous 200 million would have allowed him to dominate West Blue. The current 500 million will definitely allow him to further strengthen and gain the power to stand on the Great Route. Thinking of this, Yang Hao immediately issued 2 new orders. One is to contact local gangs and sell weapons and equipment on the ship. One is to contact the local marine. The pirates were a little confused about these 2 orders. Especially the last one. Contact the local gangs to sell weapons and equipment, and they can barely understand. But contact marine for what? Faced with everyone's confused expressions, Yang Hao did not explain, but just smiled. Of course he did this to cash out and make money. He doesn't have access to those weapons and equipment. Instead of using them to strengthen the pirate's strength, he might as well use them to simulate and strengthen himself several times. As for finding marine, of course it's to redeem the bounty. Don't forget, Hughes' head is still in his hands. Chapter 27 Crazy Simulation, no progress? 027 Crazy Simulation, no progress, Yang Hao smiled. In the simulated world, he increases his strength, but in reality, he concentrates on making money. The money he earned will allow him to open a simulated world. In this way, a good circle can be formed. His strength, let alone soaring like crazy, will definitely continue to rise steadily. It can be said that we are within reach of truly standing at the pinnacle of West Blue. After thinking about it for a while, Yang Hao felt that there was no problem, so he asked the 6 captains to lead the people. Sell those weapons and equipment to the gang and give Hughes' head to Marine. Then the money he owns can reach more than 500 million belly. Of course, before that, Yang Hao still simulated it several times to see if it went well. If things don't go well, it's not impossible to put it on hold for a while. After all, he currently has 300 million Baileys on hand, so he can simulate it for a while. After converting 300 million Baileys into power, there will be absolutely no problem in contacting the local gangs and marine. But after some simulation, Yang Hao started laughing. It seems a little too cautious. The search for local gangsters and marine went surprisingly smoothly. After several simulations, no accidents occurred. As for the reason, Yang Hao naturally figured it out. The Hughes pirates are already at the level of West Blue Overlord. Now that Hughes, the overlord of West Blue, has fallen into the hands of Yang Hao, how can the local gangs and marine dare to provoke him? Unless they are people from the headquarters of the 5 major gangs in West Blue, or Colonel Marine from the West Blue entrance branch of the Grand Line. The ones in Bowen Town and Boya Town obviously do not belong to this level. In this case, Yang Hao was relieved. After arranging for the 6 captains to take the people away, Yang Hao started simulating again in the cabin with peace of mind. Welcome to the simulation system. Please select the goal and time of this simulation. The goal of this simulation is naturally to continue to study the version of the Rambo ball, which is the new Rambo ball that Caesar helped Chopper change. This new blue wave ball can maintain its effect for a longer period of time, but the weakness caused by the side effects will also be prolonged. In fact, Yang Hao's real goal is to develop the ultimate version of the blue wave ball without any side effects. However, this project is very huge, and Yang Hao plans to proceed step by step. Of course, Yang Hao also knew that the blue wave ball was only a foreign object after all, and it was best to rely on one's own development of animal-type fruit abilities. In this way, it will be easier to awaken. Even if he can't awaken, it would still be great to be developed like Chopper 2 years after the original work. You can display other forms without using the blue wave ball. And this is another goal of Yang Hao. In terms of research, he wants to develop a more effective blue wave ball. In terms of cultivation, he wants to get rid of his dependence on the blue wave ball as much as possible, so that he can change the wavelength of the devil fruit's ability and transform at will. There is no doubt that these 2 goals are not so easy to achieve. Fortunately, Yang Hao's net worth is getting richer and richer, and his hope is still high. Thinking of this, Yang Hao no longer hesitated and turned on the simulation system again. On the first day, you sent out all your men to find more doctors, and a team of doctors was formed that night. Close black lens bracket. The next day, you handed over all the chores to your subordinates, even negotiating with the gang and marine, and then led a team of doctors to start research. You took the initiative to show the effect of the blue wave ball and let the doctor they were amazed. On the 3rd day, the research has completely started. With the blue wave ball as a sample, the research is progressing smoothly. Based on the effect of the blue wave ball, many doctors have put forward a lot of suggestions. You are in high spirits and start to adopt the suggestions and test them one by one. On the 4th day, the effects of the test gradually came out, and it was not clear whether it was good or bad for the time being. Close black lens bracket. On the 5th day, the 10th day, and 3 months later, the research came to a standstill. You found that all the suggestions were ineffective. During this period, you often used brain enhancement to assist thinking, but unfortunately there was still no progress. Perceiving that there is not much progress in research, you begin to focus part of your energy on cultivation. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket 1 year, 2 years. Close black lens bracket. The simulation is over. This simulation has produced benign changes. 1. Some muscle strength. 2. Experience in using abilities, eliminated malignant changes, and 1. The sequelae of too many drugs. Close black lens bracket. Of the 300 million Baileys that Yang Hao currently owned, about 50 million were missing. This time the simulation is over. After 2 years of training, the effect is not small. Yang Hao can feel that his strength has become a little stronger. Unfortunately, there was no breakthrough in the research, and Yang Hao did not develop his ability to the point of being able to transform at will. However, this situation did not surprise Yang Hao. There is obviously a pattern to things like strength improvement. To put it simply, when you are weak, it is easier to become stronger. For example, if an ordinary person gets a pistol, he will have considerable strength. But after reaching a certain level, it is not so easy to increase your strength further. Yang Hao has already felt that his strength has reached its bottleneck. In fact, he also has a clear understanding of how to quickly increase his strength now. In addition to developing abilities and studying blue wave balls, there are actually many methods that can allow him to continue to rapidly improve his strength. One is the Marine 6 style mentioned before. If he could master it, his power would definitely be even greater. The second way is the famous 3-color domineering spirit. This kind of power, even if you only master one of them, can make a qualitative change in Yang Hao's power. But whether it is Marine 6 styles or hockey, it is difficult to master them. All because this is something that can only be touched after entering the Grand Route. Especially for hockey, it takes almost until the second half of the Grand Line to easily learn how to practice. But Yang Hao, who is in West Blue, does not have these conditions. Of course, it seems that he can enter the Grand Route now, but that is not safe. There are too many awesome characters in the Grand Line. Yang Hao has no intention of entering when he has the power to truly stand. At least, you must have the strength to stand in the first half of the Great Route. So at present, he can only work hard on 3 aspects: physical fitness, ability, and blue wave ball research. But this time, Yang Hao was not too anxious. First of all, he currently has no clear strong enemy, so it is okay to develop slower. Secondly, he is not short of funds at the moment. When the huge sum of money is spent and there is no clear progress, it will not be too late to consider other things. With this idea in mind, Yang Hao calmly continued to simulate. Chapter 28 Local Gangs and Marine Branch. 028 Local Gang and Marine Branch once, twice, 8 times. 18 times. Soon, Yang Hao conducted 18 more simulations. During these 18 simulations, Yang Hao still studied and practiced at the same time. Research has completely stalled, and as time goes by, there is not much progress. As for cultivation, although the progress is not great, it is indeed improving slowly. This situation does not satisfy Yang Hao. So in the next few times, he simply took his men out to sea and headed directly to the Grand Line, trying to find Chopper, the developer, and continue the research himself. Or get away to practice the 6th form of Marine and hockey. However, without a good navigator, Yang Hao's journey to the Grand Route was not smooth. The boat capsized twice and was lost in the sea. The last time was even worse, being buried directly in the mouth of a Poseidon. Call. Yang Hao took a long breath. He made a fist. These 18 simulations lasted almost 10 years. Although there was not much progress, his physical fitness still increased a lot. As for the ape's ability, he is also a little more familiar with it. If we were to face Shu Si again, I'm afraid there would be no need to clear out the troops first, and we could directly kill Shu Si with the help of other fish. Thinking like this, Yang Hao did not continue the simulation. The main reason is that the 300 million Baileys on hand have been spent again. Now we can only wait until the weapons and equipment are sold and the bounty on Hughes' head is collected before we can continue the simulation. 679 Marine Branch, Bowen Township. Colonel Masdar of the Marine Division respectfully put down the phone bug in his hand. He is a tall and thick-looking middle-aged man, but he is very cautious in doing things. The Marine branch he leads has never had much of a presence in Bowen Town. No, it should be said that Marine does not have much presence in West Blue. This is a common phenomenon in West Blue, because West Blue is the most chaotic in the world. It's not that Marine doesn't have the strength to control this sea area, but it's just that it can't be separated. You know, Marine has marine branches all over the world, and there are countless branches in the Grand Line. With so many garrison points, the troops will definitely be divided according to local conditions. In West Blue, gangs are rampant, pirates are rampant, and there are countless bounty hunters. If Marine wants to be managed well, it will undoubtedly cost a lot of manpower and material resources. But as a result, it is necessary to reduce the military strength in other places. In addition, Marine's main territory is currently in the Grand Line. Therefore, over time, Marine's governance of West Blue has been greatly weakened. If the Marine branch does not encounter a major threat, it will usually just wait and see what happens. This time too. The destruction of the Hughes pirates naturally attracted Masdar's attention, but he just silently collected information and reported it to Marine headquarters. As for the vicious ape, Masdar's opinion was that he would not release the reward list for the time being. After all, so far, the vicious ape has not done anything harmful to nature. What Mazda didn't expect was that after he reported to Marine headquarters just now, his subordinates would report to him the next moment. What? People from the Hughes pirates? Masdar was surprised to learn that people from the Hughes pirates came to visit, but after learning the purpose of their visit, his expression became strange again. Collect the bounty. The subordinate confirmed again. Yes, that's what the people from the Hughes pirates said. They said they would let us take the bounty in exchange for Hughes's head. Saying this, his subordinates could not help but look strange. There are indeed people who will come to them with pirate heads to collect the bounty. But now that Yang Hao had killed the boss, he asked his subordinates to come over and inform him. Such a coquettish operation still made them look weird. Colonel Masdar, what should we do? The men asked again. Madas pondered for a few seconds and then said, get ready, I will personally deliver the money. Ah, do you really want to give the other party a bounty? His subordinates were a little confused. Madas glared at him and said, of course I have to give it, otherwise, no one will recognize our bounty system in the future. No matter what, we must maintain this system. Only in this way will someone help us eliminate criminals in the future. Needless to say, those bounty hunters, even pirates will kill each other because of the bounty. So that's it, I'm going right now. The men suddenly realized and took the order and left. And the other side. The gang manager Raymond also looked at the Hughes pirates and others in front of him in surprise. Your captain wants to sell weapons and equipment. Of course he knew everything about the new captain of the Hughes pirates. Not long ago, he even reported this matter to the Capone family headquarters. Regarding this situation, the response from the headquarters is to wait and see what happens and not to act rashly. Don't offend the other person unless necessary. So Raymond thought about it and agreed to go buy weapons and equipment. Ever since. Soon. Raymond and other gangsters, and Masdar and other Marines, arrived at the location of the Hughes pirates one after another. Huh. Why Marine? That's a member of the Capone family. Seeing the other party appear, Raymond, Mazda and others were stunned. What is going on? For a moment, both sides became somewhat tense. After all, as permanent forces, they belong to the two camps of evil and justice, and are destined to be incompatible. Although the gang is powerful, it does not mean that they are not afraid of Marine. As for Marine, he is naturally extremely wary of these gangsters. Just when the two groups were very nervous, a group of pirates came out surrounded by a handsome young man. Haha, Manager Raymond, Colonel Masdar, don't be so nervous, you are all my guests. The young man chuckled and stood calmly between the two groups. Ape, Raymond and Colonel Masdar quickly recognized the man's identity. It was in these few days that the ferocious ape conquered the Hughes pirates and became famous. Although they saw that the other party was smiling, harmless, and a pretty boy, Raymond and Mazda did not dare to look down upon him. Especially Raymond, he knew how cruel the other party was. Let's see, Manager Raymond, you follow them to see the weapons and equipment on the ship first, and Colonel Masdar, I will hand over to you directly. Neither Raymond nor Mazda had any objections to Yang Hao's arrangements. After all, they came here for this purpose. However, from beginning to end, the tension between the two groups did not ease much. Yang Hao didn't pay much attention to this. Once he has simulated it, there will be no conflict at all. Secondly, even if there is a conflict, he has the ability to suppress it. In that case, what else is there to worry about? And what happened next went as smoothly as Yang Hao expected. The two groups left one after another, and Yang Hao had more than 200 million Baileys on hand. With this amount of funds, we can continue to simulate. But this time, we have to plan carefully. Thinking like this, Yang Hao returned to the room and picked up a blue wave ball. Chapter 29 Brain Strengthening, the Key to Transformation. 029 Mind Strengthening, the Key to Transformation. Mind Strengthening. Yang Hao took the blue wave ball and said silently in his heart. In an instant, when he was in the beast form, his ferocious head suddenly swelled up and turned out to be even bigger than his chest and abdomen, which looked extremely exaggerated. It looks like an alien. No, it should be an alien ape. But this look reminded Yang Hao of Vegapunk, the brain fruit user. In short, it's just weird. Yang Hao ignored it, but gathered his thoughts and began to think. The effect of the blue wave ball is still only 3 minutes. He couldn't afford to waste it, otherwise you will have to wait 6 hours. As Yang Hao started to think, words and ideas emerged one by one. Speaking of which, brain strengthening is a state that is difficult to describe. In this state, Yang Hao just felt that it would be much easier to think about things, and at the same time, he could recall some of his past memories very clearly. There is no doubt that this state should be very conducive to thinking. Yang Hao also often uses brain enhancement to conduct research and deductions in simulations. But now it seems that research has encountered a bottleneck, which cannot be easily overcome. As for cultivation, the same is true. If there is no good way, we can only improve steadily. Of course, steady improvement is not impossible. But now that hundreds of millions have been spent, Yang Hao is not satisfied with such a gain. Yang Hao decided not to rush into the simulation, but to spend some time, use his brain to strengthen, and thoroughly plan how to simulate. In this way, his money will be spent more cost-effectively. At this time, Yang Hao focused on research first. He did not think about how to develop a more effective blue wave ball, but thought about the reasons for the failure of the previous simulation studies. With the finished blue wave ball, it stands to reason that it is not difficult to enhance the effect. If the medicinal materials are older and the potency becomes stronger, it will probably be enough. But in the end, I still failed. What was the reason for my failure? Is our medical knowledge not sophisticated enough? Or is it something else? Don't tell me yet. 3 minutes later, Yang Hao really had some clues. His medical skills are not superb, that's for sure. West Blue is a small sea area, and the medical skills here are certainly not as good as those in the Grand Line. You know, Gurava, who taught Chauba medical skills, is said to have very superb medical skills. In this way, it is not surprising that the medical skills of Chopper she taught can crush the West Blue doctors like them. Some things cannot be compensated by quantity. In addition, Yang Hao also thought that the more powerful blue wave ball was not developed by Chopper, but was developed with the help of Caesar Current. And Caesar Current is a scientist. Does this mean that if you want to develop a more effective blue wave ball, you still need science and technology? Thinking of this, Yang Hao felt a little difficult. In this world, scientists are very rare. Especially top scientists are almost rare. In a small sea area like Sahai, apart from the Vinsmoke family, Yang Hao could not think of any other scientists. But the problem is that if you want to get the science and technology of the Vinsmoke family, you have to go to the Grand Line and then transfer to North Blue. And the current Yang Hao may not be able to deal with the Vinsmoke family. After some thinking, Yang Hao understood that it would be difficult to make progress in research for the time being. After understanding this, Yang Hao stopped worrying and decided immediately to restart research after arriving at the Grand Line. In fact, the current blue wave ball effect is enough. Yang Hao can completely suppress ordinary enemies within 3 minutes. And there are almost no enemies in West Blue that he can't suppress even if he takes the blue wave ball for 3 minutes. Even if there is, he will most likely take the initiative to avoid it. So in general, there is no progress in the research on blue wave balls, which is not an urgent matter for Yang Hao. With this idea, Yang Hao then focused on cultivation. In fact, if Yang Hao could completely control the deformation fluctuations in his body and use 8 stages of deformation at will like Chopper did 2 years later in the original work, his power would be greatly improved. With this in mind, Yang Hao's next thoughts were mainly focused on how to become familiar with controlling the deformation fluctuations in his body. For this reason, he used his mind to strengthen and think carefully within a few days. Finally, I came to the conclusion that I still have to change my shape frequently. Only by frequently deforming can the body be familiar with this change, thus leaving muscle memory and completely mastering it. In view of this conclusion, Yang Hao thought of the human animal form and animal form that he first mastered. Although these two forms can be mastered naturally, they are not very proficient from the beginning. Other deformations are probably similar. After thinking about this, Yang Hao no longer struggled. He used the last 200.5 million Baileys to continue the simulation. The goal this time is to continue to familiarize yourself with the abilities, especially the transformation aspect. On the first day, you had a clear goal. After leaving the chores to your subordinates, you continued to practice, taking blue wave balls, and becoming familiar with multiple transformations. On this day, you once again realized the benefits of having subordinates, cooking, doing. You don't have to worry about hygiene and other chores at all, so you can concentrate more on your practice. The next day, after the effect of the medicine has passed, you time it again, eat the blue ball without stopping, and continue to familiarize yourself with the transformation. Open black lens bracket the third day. Close black lens bracket. In the third month, the irritability of cultivation comes to you again. Your body, which is constantly taking medicine, seems to be suffering from hidden diseases, but you don't care. In the third year, you feel very familiar with the transformation, almost like you can control it. In the 5th year, you felt that practicing was extremely boring, but you still did not stop practicing. This year, you got inspiration and started taking blue wave balls crazily. In the 7th year, your body became seriously ill because of the medicine you took, close black lens bracket. In the 8th year, due to a serious illness, you practiced even more crazily and even started to use blue wave balls to conduct strange experiments, close black lens bracket. In the 10th year, when you were in poor condition, you were targeted by the Capone family and died tragically in their hands, close black lens bracket. Simulation ends, producing benign changes, 1 strengthened heart form, 2 ability transformation experience, 3 muscle strength, eliminating malignant changes, 1 extreme irritability from cultivation, 2 body resistance, hidden disease. This time the simulation is over. Yang Hao was stunned on the spot. Huge energy and information surged crazily in his body. Chapter 30 Heart Strengthening, Various Strengthening. 030 Heart Strengthening, Various Strengthening. Huge amounts of energy and information are coming. Yang Hao's whole body was shaken up, and his eyes showed strong joy. The harvest this time is undoubtedly much greater than before. Although there is still no achievement in research, Yang Hao has made great progress in cultivation. Of course, there is no need to say much about physical fitness. The most important thing is that he really knows how to transform at will. Thinking of this, Yang Hao didn't say anything. He muttered silently in his heart and began to transform. In an instant, it turned into a diamond-like animal shape, but its hands continued to grow thicker. This is arm strengthening. The next second, his long and thick arms shrank, and even his height became shorter, but his hair grew wildly. This is fur enhancement. Then there is leg strengthening and brain strengthening. In addition to the strengthening of monsters, Yang Hao has been able to switch freely among the previous transformations. And each form can be used familiarly. The current Yang Hao can definitely compete with Chopper 2 years later in the original work in terms of the use of animal fruit abilities. Yang Hao was not too surprised by this. In terms of talent, he is not much weaker than Chopper. Even because of the time traveler's vision, he can think of many techniques and ideas that Chopper could not think of. In this way, it is strange that he spent such a long time practicing hard and could not keep up with Chopper's few years of practice. However, mastering the power of transformation freely is not Yang Hao's biggest gain from this simulation. His biggest gain is the strengthening of his heart. Thinking of this, Yang Hao took out a blue wave ball and ate it. He muttered silently and suddenly the shape changed again. Originally, he was in human animal form. But at this moment, wisps of steam suddenly emerged from his body surface. The light brown panel turned red obviously. People who are familiar with One Piece fans will probably immediately think of Luffy's second gear when they see this scene. That's right, it's second gear. Yang Hao looked down at the red and smoking beast body, and an excited smile suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth. The heart strengthening effect is actually the same as Luffy's rubber second gear. In short, the power is doubled. This heart strengthening, speaking of it, was also the inspiration that Yang Hao obtained after strengthening his mind in the simulation. After getting familiar with the transformation, Yang Hao suddenly had an inspiration. The flexibility of this transformation power seemed to be beyond his expectation. Arms, fur, feet, horns, and even the brain can be strengthened. So can this strengthening effect also be applied to other positions? Ever since, Yang Hao quickly thought of Luffy's second gear. And Luffy's second gear, the key position, is the heart. The principle is to pump energy into the heart, promote blood circulation, and greatly enhance body functions. Because Luffy's body is made of rubber, his heart can withstand it. So, if he can also strengthen his heart, can he also use this to greatly increase his strength? I have to say, this idea is still very good. Moreover, Yang Hao also has the capital for trial and error. In the simulation, even if he goes wrong, it doesn't matter. With this idea in mind, Yang Hao naturally started experimenting, but to his surprise, he actually succeeded. Feeling the stronger power surging in his body, Yang Hao grinned. I also have my own second gear. There is no doubt that this kind of heart strengthening is another trump card. Moreover, this trump card is more stable than monster strengthening, certainly. This heart enhancement has a similar effect to Luffy's second gear, so it will naturally have the same side effects. According to the medical knowledge Yang Hao possesses, if you use this heart enhanced form too much, your lifespan will indeed be shortened. But despite its flaws, this is indeed a good trump card. Thinking like this, Yang Hao restrained his abilities. Not only did the vision disappear, but he even returned to his human form. Yang Hao had a smile on his face. Heart strengthening is far from being able to fully explain the wonder of random transformation. Maybe he could dig deeper. For example, strengthening the brain can increase intelligence, strengthening the heart can increase strength, but what about other internal organs? If the kidneys are strengthened, will it improve the ability of a man? If the lungs are strengthened, will it increase lung capacity, such as extending breathing underwater? What about the throat, teeth, ears, eyes and so on? The more he thought about it, the brighter Yang Hao's eyes became. But if you want to continue digging deeper, you still need to use simulation. Because the facial features are fine, but the internal organs, even if they are not the heart, are still very fragile. If something really went wrong in reality, Yang Hao wouldn't be able to deal with it. Also, it's worth mentioning. If you want to try other transformations, you still need to use the effectiveness of the blue wave ball. Just like heart enhancement, Yang Hao cannot activate it directly at present. Instead, he needs to swallow a blue wave ball before he can activate it. As for other deformed states, it naturally requires the medicinal power of the blue wave ball to stimulate them. Of course, the biggest problem now is that I have no money again. Looking at the empty warehouse, Yang Hao laughed dumbly. You know, it was less than 3 days before he destroyed the Hughes pirates. If the pirate men outside knew that he had spent almost all of the more than 500 million belly, they would probably be scared to death. I, cheat, seem to be a gold-eating beast. Yang Hao smiled bitterly. Good thing. Now that his strength is at the pinnacle of West Blue, it is not difficult to make money. Besides, now he has gathered a group of pirate subordinates. To a certain extent, Yang Hao can be regarded as a pirate. Is it difficult for pirates to make money? Of course it's not difficult. Just go grab it. It's just a question of who to rob. With Yang Hao's current position as a celebrity, it is certainly impossible to grab someone casually. There is no point in grabbing millions of Baileys. If you want to grab them, just tens of millions or even hundreds of millions. Yang Hao's mind turned around and he soon had a target. The Capone family. Although this time the harvest was huge, Yang Hao did not forget the ending of this simulation. He was killed by the Capone family, one of the 5 major West Blue Gang families. Obviously, it was because his strength had declined severely that the Capone family took action against him. In this case, don't blame him for attacking several casinos owned by the Capone family in Bowen Town and Boya Town. In fact, even without this reason, Yang Hao would still keep an eye on these casinos. Because the income from these casinos is quite a lot, if it can be included in the pocket, it will bring him a considerable amount of funds. I didn't have time before, and I still had some food left on hand. But now that the situation is exhausted, Yang Hao will naturally not be polite. Chapter 31 Attacking the Capone Family. 031 Attack the Capone Family. Yang Hao decided to attack the Capone family in Bowen Town and Boya Town. Of course, before that, he still used the remaining millions of Baileys to simulate it several times. Although with his current strength, it is almost impossible for an accident to suppress the local gangs, but to be cautious, Yang Hao still simulates first and then acts. After several simulations, and after confirming that it was as smooth as selling arms before, Yang Hao set off with his men without saying a word. Bowen Formation Gang Station. Raymond, the gang manager, nodded while listening to the report from his men, with a smile on his face wearing an eye patch. They also made a profit because Yang Hao wanted to sell the weapons and equipment they bought from Yang Hao a few days ago. Of course, what makes Raymond happiest is Yang Hao's attitude. Since the other party has done business with them, that is to say, the previous incident at the casino should not be taken to heart. In this case, Yang Hao will probably leave with the pirates soon, right? What makes Lei Monkey strange is that since Yang Hao is leaving with the pirates, wouldn't it be better to leave more weapons and equipment? Why exchange money? If you need money, why don't you just grab it? Pirates are different from gangsters. They are gangsters and they still need a certain industry. But pirates can plunder everywhere. I really don't understand. Raymond shook his head, but no matter what, this was a good thing for him. Just as Raymond was thinking this, suddenly a younger brother ran over in a panic. Lei, Raymond manages. What's wrong? Raymond asked doubtfully. The boy was sweating profusely and said, yes, it's the Hughes pirates, they are coming to us. Raymond stood up suddenly. The Hughes pirates, what are they doing here? Is that vicious ape here too? The younger brother nodded with a pale face. Raymond was even more strange. Why did the other party come to visit me again? Let's go take a look and call the brothers. Raymond gave an order and strode out immediately. Young men in suits quickly gathered around. Raymond led his men outside, and sure enough, he saw a large group of people walking towards them. They were all thick-looking, ferocious pirates, but the leader was a young man less than 20 years old, with a handsome face, not very tall, and looked harmless. Hey, Captain Fierce Ape, what's going on? A smile appeared on Raymond's face. Although he was a little wary, it wasn't much. After all, the two of them had just completed a deal not long ago, and it was impossible for the other party to cause trouble so soon. However, Yang Hao's words suddenly made Lei Meng's expression change drastically. Haha, it's nothing. I took over the pirate group and haven't brought my brothers to work yet. I plan to take them out to start work today. I wonder if Raymond's management can cooperate. Hearing this, Raymond was stunned. Cooperate? How to cooperate? Yang Hao grinned. It's very simple, just lend us some money to spend. After hearing this, Lei Meng could not understand what Yang Hao meant. His younger brothers also understood, and their faces changed wildly. Yang Hao is here to rob, and he is targeting them. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became tense. Yang Hao still had a smile on his face. In the simulation, he already knew the power of Raymond and others clearly. It is no exaggeration to say that he can suppress them with one hand. Of course, what Yang Hao cares about most is the money of Lei Meng and others. According to the results of his simulation, although Raymond and others spent a sum of money to purchase their weapons and equipment a few days ago, they still have tens of millions on hand. In addition, if several casinos operate well, they can earn millions of belly every day. This money is much less than what Yang Hao had before, but it is worth it for Yang Hao. What do you mean? If we come here to cause trouble, we may not be able to continue talking. Raymond's face gradually became gloomy, and then he took out a hand axe from his waist. If we can't talk anymore, then let's stop talking. Yang Hao curled his lips, his figure suddenly soared, golden hair surged all over his body, and he grew the physical signs of an ape. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into a beast. Then he turned around and ordered his subordinates, you stay away. This time I brought my subordinates here, naturally not to ask them to help fight. None of Raymond and the others can fight, and he alone is more than enough. Only after he defeated Raymond and others did his subordinates need to help him transport his belongings. Do it. When Raymond heard this, he no longer hesitated and shouted immediately. In an instant, these people all took out their pistols and started firing. Bang bang bang. Raymond fired a gunshot, and like a signal, a large number of gunshots suddenly rose up. A hail of bullets formed instantly. Yang Hao chuckled lightly and rolled away. Fur strengthening. In the blink of an eye, the golden hair on his body surged again. As Yang Hao rolled, a huge fur ball appeared on the scene. Not only that, the fur ball started to roll, and faced a hail of bullets, approaching Raymond and the others. What? He's coming here. Raymond and others were shocked. The huge fur ball rolled over and made them all flip up. Taking advantage of everyone's confusion, the fur shrank, and a strong figure leapt out, bumping into each other. Foot strengthening. Even if Yang Hao's power is concentrated on his legs and feet at this time, the charge launched at this speed is unstoppable. He was unparalleled in the crowd and ran rampant. Boom boom boom. After a collision, it fell far away again. Strengthen your arms. Boo hoo hoo. As Yang Hao waved his thick arms, this time it was Lei Meng and others who were enveloped in a hail of bullets. Ah, don't kill me. Monster. Monster. Screaming and wailing, Raymond and others were directly defeated. If we say that the previous Yang Hao was still a little slow and unskilled in his transformation. So now he is completely fluent. Various forms, easy to convert and use. He didn't even need to strengthen his heart. He could easily defeat hundreds of Raymond with just a few routine changes. At this point, Bowen Town fell into Yang Hao's control. Next, Yang Hao did not stop and continued to kill the nearby Boya Town. The news here quickly spread to the Marine branch and the Capone family headquarters. Chapter 32 50 million reward, Vicious Ape Yang Hao. 032 50 million reward, Murderous Ape Yang Hao. What? The vicious ape attacked the gangsters in the town. Just as Yang Hao and his men continued to kill Boya Town, the Marine branch of Bowen Town also learned of the elimination of the gang in Bowen Town for the first time. Upon hearing this news, the branch Colonel Mazdar's face changed wildly. To be honest, when he saw Lei Meng and others at Yang Hao's place before, Mazda had some reservations. After some further inquiring, he found out that Yang Hao had sold a large number of weapons and equipment to Raymond and others. This situation makes Mazdar a little worried. If Yang Hao joins forces with the gangs, there will be trouble. They had no sense of existence in the first place and were probably completely in name only. But what he never expected was that within a few days, Yang Hao would actually take action against Raymond and others. But this is a good thing. Mazda came back to his senses and became energetic. In West Blue, gangs are already powerful. So even here in Bowen Town, their Marine branch was overwhelmed by the gangs. But now it's better, the gang was wiped out by pirates. If it's a pirate, he shouldn't stay too long, right? When the time comes, if Yang Hao leaves with the pirates, Raymond and others will be wiped out, leaving the town empty of evil forces, which may be his contribution. Thinking of this, Mazda smiled on his face. Colonel Mazdar, do you want to put a reward on that vicious ape? At this moment, his adjutant made a suggestion. Hearing this, Mazda's heart suddenly moved. Previously, he only reported Yang Hao's situation to the Marine headquarters and did not confirm the reward. But now it seems that it is necessary to offer a reward. Because in addition to killing Hughes, Yang Hao also eliminated the local gang. With such danger, if there is no reward, it will inevitably cause greater harm by then. Thinking of this, Mazdar made a decision and immediately reported to the Bounty Department of Marine Headquarters. Other side. Without stopping, Yang Hao led his men to Boya Town. Here, like Bowen Town, a group of gangsters are stationed. Among them, there is even a gang manager like Raymond. But such a force naturally cannot stop Yang Hao's multi-stage transformation power. In less than 2 days, Yang Hao wiped out all the gangs in the 2 towns. And his pirate men also successfully took over the gang industries in 2 towns. Mainly casinos. In addition, there are some scattered protection fees. These industries bring Yang Hao more than 1 million yuan in income every day. Of course, what Yang Hao is most concerned about right now is the money collected from the gangs in the 2 towns. A full 100 million. Although it's not much, it should be enough for Yang Hao to continue developing new transformations of the internal organs. Yang Hao did not hesitate. After gathering the money, he continued to simulate. On the first day, you continue to practice. The main direction of practice is to develop more internal organ deformations. To this end, you start to try to concentrate the power of transformation on the internal organs, or the 5 senses. The next day, something went wrong with your practice, and 1 kidney was directly damaged. There are 2 kidneys in the human body, so even though you were injured, you were still alive. On the 3rd day, you did not give up and continued to take the blue wave ball. With the help of the power of the blue wave ball, you tried to strengthen your internal organs and obtain new transformations. On the 4th day, you made another mistake in your practice. This time you were seriously injured, and to make matters worse, Marine released a bounty of 50 million for you, and your nickname was the Fierce Ape. You felt the crisis because of this. Close black lens bracket. On the 5th day, you originally thought you would be rounded up by Marine, and you were mentally prepared, but unexpectedly you met an acquaintance. This acquaintance was none other than Capone Becky, one of the original One Piece supernovas. It turns out that you killed 2. The Capone family has already known about the situation of recruiting gangsters. The Capone family can no longer ignore your existence, so they sent Capone Becky, close black lens bracket. You who were seriously injured were no match for Capone Becky. Under the terrifying firepower, you fell to the ground. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You are dead. Close black lens bracket. The simulation is over, benign changes are obtained, 1 deformation experience is obtained, and malignant changes are eliminated. Close black lens bracket. When the simulation ended, Yang Hao's handsome face revealed a look of surprise. He didn't expect that. In the first simulation after killing 2 gangsters, there was a big surprise. Not only was he officially offered a bounty by Marine, he even encountered Capone Becky, the future pirate supernova. However, Yang Hao thought about it and felt relieved. Having conquered the Hughes pirates, he has become Marine's focus. Now that Raymond and others have been killed, Marine can no longer remain indifferent. As for the Capone family, it's not surprising that they sent people to look for trouble. After all, the Capone family is one of the 5 major gangs in West Blue. How could it be possible to turn a blind eye when 2 town forces were wiped out suddenly? If anyone could act arrogantly in front of them, the opponent's top gangster would lose all face. Of course, Yang Hao felt that the real reason for the Capone family to deal with him was profit. In addition to the money owned by Raymond and others, the industry here also brings in a lot of money every day. Then there is the black market. After being destroyed by Yang Hao, the black market here will definitely not be able to open. As far as Yang Hao knows, the income from the black market is sometimes higher than that of casinos and other industries combined. Originally, Yang Hao also wanted to continue to hold a black market, but unfortunately he did not have the supply of goods from the gang headquarters, so he could not hold it at all. Moreover, his action of killing Raymond and others also made those black market customers a little worried. In fact, casinos have also been affected to a certain extent. Therefore, these industries will only be more profitable in the hands of gangsters than in the hands of Yang Hao. In this case, it is not surprising that the Capone family sent people to deal with him. What surprised Yang Hao was just that. The person sent by the Capone family turned out to be Capone Becky. The most surprising thing is that he died at the hands of Capone Becky in the simulation. But this was also because he made mistakes in his training and was seriously injured one after another, which greatly reduced his combat power. Now that he knew Capone Becky would come, Yang Hao was naturally prepared. Next time, he won't fight in this state. Thinking of this, Yang Hao suddenly felt fighting spirit. I wonder if with my current strength, at my peak, I can beat Capone Becky. With a murmur, Yang Hao had a hint of expectation in his eyes. Before this, he had always encountered sidekick-level characters. These characters, in the original work, didn't even have a chance to appear. And now, I finally see a supporting character who has a name and surname in the original work, and even appears in a few scenes. The emergence of Capone Becky undoubtedly proves Yang Hao's growth. This greatly encouraged him. Without further ado, after sorting out his thoughts, Yang Hao started a new simulation. Chapter 33 Capone Becky, the gap between firepower and defense. 033 Capone Becky, the gap between firepower and defense. On the first day, because of the appearance of Capone Becky, you no longer practice transformation, but continue to familiarize yourself with the existing transformation and exercise at the same time, intending to face the opponent in the best condition. Close black lens bracket. Time flies, and it's the 5th day. On this day, Capone and Becky arrived as promised. Without saying a word, you transformed and launched an attack on the opponent. Close black lens bracket. Because of your previous experience, you directly launched the strongest attack method, throwing stones. Close black lens bracket. As a result, in terms of firepower, you are still weaker. Capone Becky did not come alone, but brought many subordinates. Those subordinates were hidden in his body, and the firepower they unleashed, even if you use heart enhancement, is still not as good as the other party. Close black lens bracket. Throwing stones failed, you changed your strategy and attempted a close attack. You still know the castle fruit relatively well. This fruit ability is good at long range and defense, but is relatively weak at short range. Close black lens bracket. Unfortunately, the heart strengthening time is only 3 minutes. You have wasted a minute just now. When you want to launch a close attack, you will have to spend a lot of effort to avoid gunfire and approach Capone Becky. The heart strengthening time is over and you have entered a weak state. Capone Becky seizes the opportunity and annihilates you in the terrifying fire. Close black lens bracket. End of simulation. Benign changes, 1 some muscle strength, 2 practical experience, eliminate malignant changes. Close black lens bracket. When the simulation ended this time, Yang Hao suddenly frowned. Because he knew that Capone Becky was coming, he did not risk practicing transformation during this simulation, but maintained his peak condition as much as possible. But what I never expected was that even so, he would not be able to defeat Capone Becky. Not enough firepower. Thinking of Capone Becky's body that could hide people, Yang Hao couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seems like I can't compete with this gangster godfather in terms of firepower. Although Yang Hao's stone throwing had a record of defeating hundreds of people head-on, it was obviously not enough against Capone Becky. Just because he was able to defeat hundreds of people doesn't mean that he can really stand up to the firepower launched by hundreds of people. And those people in Capone Becky's body probably have cannons or something. From this point of view, his strongest attack method was suppressed by the opponent. Later, Yang Hao changed his strategy, which seemed to be correct. In terms of close combat, Capone Becky, as a castle fruit user, is indeed a bit weak. It's a pity that he is not as good as the opponent in throwing stones, and has lost the opportunity. Later, He wasted the time to strengthen his heart, causing Capone Becky to seize the opportunity and take him away in a wave. But now that he has experience, Yang Hao should be able to do better next time. Thinking of this, Yang Hao muttered silently and started a new simulation. On the first day, you started to exercise, and you consciously wanted to strengthen your close quarters skills, but in this regard, you had no good way. After all, your hand-to-hand combat skills were always very poor, and you only relied on strong strength to perform. At this time you noticed the giant stick weapon left by Hughes, and your heart moved. Your powerful power, coupled with the giant stick made of steel, seems to be able to be used better. The next day, you start to officially practice giant sticks, and you look for people who have mastered stick weapon skills among your pirates, and start to supplement them. On the third day, after your sleepless study, you are no longer a stranger to the giant stick. By the fourth day, you can already dance the giant stick awkwardly, and use the giant stick to practice with pirate men. On the fifth day, holding a giant stick, you waited until Capone Becky arrived. Without a word, there was another battle. This time, you did not use throwing stones, but tried your best to engage in close combat with the opponent. Close black lens bracket. Close combat does have some effects, but not much. Capone Becky's terrifying firepower still threatens you. Close black lens bracket. In desperation, you activated the heart enhancement again, avoiding the fire as much as possible, and approached Capone Becky. Close black lens bracket. In the end, you really succeeded in hitting Capone Becky with the giant stick, but only twice. The opponent was safe and sound, but you were enveloped in firepower. After all, your strong body could not withstand the bombardment of artillery fire. Close black lens bracket. You will be dead before the heart strengthening time is over. Close black lens bracket. The simulation is over. There are benign changes, 1 some stick skills, 2 some practical experience, no malignant changes. Close black lens bracket. After another simulation ended, Yang Hao's brows frowned. Still lost, he murmured, looking a little ugly. At this time, Yang Hao finally realized that he was no match for Capone Becky. If he lost to Capone Becky in the first simulation, it could also be said that it was due to a mistake in his training that his combat power was greatly reduced. So now, Yang Hao really has no reason to refute. In the next 2 simulations, he lost. It can be seen that the current him is indeed no match for Capone Becky. As for the reason why he is not as good as Capone Becky, Yang Hao also figured it out. First, it's firepower. Secondly, it is defense. There is no need to say more about firepower. Although Yang Hao's firepower is strong, it is still far behind Capone Becky. As long as the opponent has a few cannons hidden in his body, the firepower will surely defeat him. Of course, with Yang Hao's current strength, he might also be able to try throwing cannonballs by hand. But in terms of quantity, it is still difficult for him to match Capone Becky. In a short period of time, his remote methods will definitely be inferior to his opponents. As for defense, after the third simulation, Yang Hao suddenly discovered that Capone Becky's current defense was not something he could break through. Even if it wasn't a giant stick but his stone-throwing method, it probably wouldn't be able to hurt the opponent. As for the reason, it is also very simple. It's because of the opponent's castle fruit ability. Don't forget, in the original book, the castle boss transformed by Capone Becky resisted the attacks of the 4 emperors. Although it was somewhat reluctant to resist Big Mom's attack, its defensive power was still immoderate. In this case, the current Yang Hao may really be unable to break through Capone Becky's defense. The attack can't match it, and the defense can't be broken. How can we fight this? Thinking of this, Yang Hao was a little dumbfounded. It turned out that he was still full of fighting spirit and confident. Now it seems that even if Capone Becky is just a supporting role, he should not be underestimated. It's right to think about it. In the world of pirates, as the era of great pirates begins, countless people go out to sea every year, just like Crucian carp crossing the river. How can someone who can stand out among countless people and obtain the title of Pirate Supernova be so easy to deal with? From this point of view, perhaps he can only compete with Capone Becky if he develops more transformations. No, even if I master more transformations, I'm afraid it won't change the outcome of the battle. Suddenly, Yang Hao shook his head again. The deformation of internal organs and facial features that he planned to study next did not seem to improve his strength much. It is foreseeable that even if those parts are strengthened, the most they can do is allow Yang Hao to gain more abilities. It is really impossible to say that there is any immediate improvement in strength. If this is the case, what should we do? Yang Hao fell into deep thought. Chapter 34,034, the monster is strengthened to fight the big boss of the castle. 034, the monsters are strengthened to fight against the big boss of the castle. Yang Hao pondered for a while and found that there was really no way to deal with Capone Becky. Unless he makes a major breakthrough in strength within a short period of time. But Yang Hao cannot guarantee this. After all, the other transformations he will delve into next will not increase his strength much. So what to do? Yang Hao thought about it for a long time, but still had no idea. He even used brain enhancement. In this case, it seems that we can only leave here. Yang Hao sighed secretly. In fact, there is a very simple way to escape the threat of Capone Becky. That's getting out of here. Like before, when Yang Hao couldn't deal with the Hughes pirates, he chose to leave. Although in the simulation, he also encountered danger after going to sea, he did get rid of the opponent because of this. This method should also work if used here by Capone Becky. The sea is so big that it is not easy for Capone Becky to find him. And as long as he gets rid of Capone Becky this time, then next time, maybe Yang Hao's strength will really increase to the point where he can compete with the opponent or even defeat him. Of course, navigation is still a big problem. Without good navigators, there is still a lot of chance of encountering a shipwreck if you head out to sea hastily. However, compared to last time, Yang Hao's water quality was much stronger. This time, even if he fell into the water in a shipwreck, his chance of survival would be greatly increased. Thinking of this, Yang Hao finally felt certain. But with such an idea, Yang Hao did not act immediately. There are still a few days until Capone Becky arrives, so he doesn't need to be too anxious. In addition, the situation between him and Capone Becky was only simulated 3 times. Yang Hao couldn't make a complete conclusion as to whether he really couldn't deal with the other party. To be honest, Yang Hao would not want to leave just now if he could. After all, the industry here can bring in more than 1 million Baileys every day. After accumulating for a period of time, Yang Hao can still simulate a lot of time. Being able to make money stably and become stronger, even if the speed is a little slower, is actually acceptable to Yang Hao. But now that Capone Becky is a threat, he can't leave. But before leaving, it doesn't matter if he spends more Baileys to simulate a few more times. In fact, Yang Hao still has a trump card that is useless. That is, monster strengthening. Heart enhancement is useless to Capone Becky, but what about monster enhancement? Thinking of this, Yang Hao became a little more interested. Then give it a try. On the first day, you continue to exercise and wait for the arrival of Capone Becky. Close black lens bracket. On the 5th day, Capone Becky appeared again. You were too lazy to talk nonsense and directly ate 3 blue wave balls. The strong medicinal power spread in your body, making your ape ability completely out of control. Close black lens bracket. With a bang, your figure skyrocketed, and all your ability indexes soared with it, but the crazy surge in power also went to your head. When you lost your mind, you completely entered the monster strengthening state, turning into a monster with a height of 15 rise King Kong. Close black lens bracket open black lens bracket. Capone Becky was greatly surprised, and the terrifying firepower was about to be poured on your huge body. Close black lens bracket. The powerful artillery fire that fell on you in the past only knocked you to a halt for a moment. Soon, you lost your mind and rushed towards Capone Becky despite the artillery fire. Close black lens bracket. With just one punch, Capone Becky's face changed drastically and he vomited blood. Close black lens bracket. He couldn't help but look down on you anymore, and directly activated his ultimate move, transforming into a huge 80-meter castle. In front of such a giant thing, you, who transformed into a giant King Kong, became thinner. Close black lens bracket. You lost your mind and were not afraid at all. You held 2 fists as big as water tanks and continued to attack. Your fists hit the huge castle, making the castle roar, but you were still a long way from defeating the castle. Distance. Close black lens bracket. Capone Becky did not neglect too much. After transforming into a huge castle, he let the men and horses in his body turn on all the firepower. More than a dozen cannons and countless machine guns and muskets erupted into an unprecedented astonishing firepower. Close black lens bracket. Even your King Kong body soon began to be damaged, and then injured. Before you could break through the strong castle, the terrifying artillery fire had already severely injured you and knocked you to the ground. The last scene you saw was the castle pouring down. Close black lens bracket. The simulation ends with benign changes, some muscle strength, and no malignant changes. Close black lens bracket. Did you lose again? Yang Hao looked at the simulation results and shook his head. In fact, he was not too surprised by this result. Still the same sentence. Capone Becky's castle body, even the ant can withstand it, how can it be so easy to break through? After he entered the monster's enhanced form, although his strength increased greatly, it was still difficult to break through the opponent's castle body. Of course, this is also because Yang Hao lost consciousness after entering the monster enhancement. If his consciousness is still there, he might really be able to deal with Capone Becky. After all, if he is still conscious, he will not just stand around and get beaten after being strengthened by monsters, and he can also use techniques such as throwing rocks and giant sticks to make better use of his terrifying power. Instead of rushing over stupidly and throwing random punches. In that case, even if he can't compete with Capone Becky, it probably won't be easy for him to defeat him. The result at that time is very likely that he will escape unscathed. After all, in comparison, Yang Hao still has some advantages in speed. But it doesn't make sense to say this now. This simulation has completely confirmed that the current Yang Hao is indeed no match for Capone Becky. Unless he reaches the level where he can control the strengthening of monsters. However, in Yang Hao's view, even if he could control the monsters to strengthen, it would still be too much. After all, in the beginning, even if you can control the monsters to strengthen, the effect will not last long. Most likely, it will still be 3 minutes. If Capone Becky cannot be dealt with in those 3 minutes, then his ending will not change. From this point of view, he really couldn't survive without going to sea this time. However, thinking of this, Yang Hao still did not set off immediately, but chose to continue spending Bailey and conduct simulations. Now that he knew that no matter what, he would not be able to defeat Capone Becky for the time being, he no longer struggled with this matter. So for the next simulation, he returned to his original goal. That is, delving into other internal organs or the deformation of the facial features. These transformations may not greatly increase Yang Hao's power, but they should also greatly enrich his abilities and methods. He will go to sea next, and maybe these abilities and methods will come in handy. With this idea, Yang Hao muttered silently and entered a new simulation. Chapter 35 The ferocious ape goes out to fight, but not a blade of grass grows. 035 The ferocious ape goes out to fight, and not even a blade of grass grows. What? The vicious ape has left. West Blue Bowen Town Marine Branch. This morning, Marine Colonel Masdar received another unexpected message. That is, the ferocious ape who conquered the Hughes pirates and killed the local gang has left the town and entered the sea with those pirates. This news really surprised Masdar. You know, after killing Raymond and others 2 days ago, the ferocious ape had a strong tendency to occupy their property and inherit the business. But now, he left directly. Maybe he saw the reward list we released for him and got scared. Marine's men speculated. When Masda heard this, his heart moved. It is indeed possible. After all, becoming a bounty prisoner, on the one hand, is recognized for one's strength, but on the other hand, it also brings corresponding crises. The existence of bounty criminals will not only be pursued by Marines, but also coveted by bounty hunters. Even fellow pirates will be interested in his head count. So, was that vicious ape really scared away by the reward list? Masda vaguely felt that it was impossible, but for a while he couldn't think of other possibilities. But no matter what, this is also a good thing for them. Masda asked himself that he couldn't deal with that ferocious ape. Now that the other party has left, he can breathe a sigh of relief. Other side. On the sea not far from Bowen Town. Just as Masda received the message, several pirate ships of the Hughes pirates had indeed set sail. On the bow of the leading pirate ship, a young man with a handsome face sat cross-legged, and the sea breeze blew his hair upside down. It was none other than Yang Hao. At this time, Yang Hao held a reward list in his hand, with his photo and information on it. Open black lens bracket vicious ape close black lens bracket Yang Hao. Bounty. 50 million Baileys. Ability. Ape fruit. Deeds. Killed the one-eyed Hughes with a bounty of 40 million. Looking at this reward list, Yang Hao shook his head and laughed. He certainly didn't leave because of the bounty on his head. However, Masda's guess that he was escaping was not wrong. After confirming that he could not deal with Capone Becky for the time being, Yang Hao ordered his men to quickly sort out their belongings, then boarded 6 pirate ships and set sail directly. Of course, he had simulated it several times before, and only after confirming that he would not encounter Capone Becky during this voyage, he officially took the people away. The sea breeze blew in his face, and Yang Hao was in a pretty good mood at this time. Although this time, Masda guessed it, and he did escape with his men. But even if he escaped, he didn't feel humiliated. After all, he had calculated everything, and it had only been less than 2 months since he arrived in the pirate world. In 2 months, Yang Hao was already very satisfied with his current strength. Even if he had to choose to retreat now, he would not be discouraged. Because he knows that it won't take long before he can compete with Capone Becky, or even crush him. To put it simply, it is. The future is promising. Yang Hao grinned and threw away the reward list in his hand. Next, he returned to the cabin. Entering the warehouse, what appeared in front of Yang Hao was a pile of treasures. This is Yang Hao's current total net worth, which is about 80 to 90 million. After going to sea, Yang Hao will naturally not be idle, and it is time to continue to study and develop other transformations. Of course, at the same time, Yang Hao will also simulate the next trip. Although he is no longer worried about being shipwrecked, it will still be very troublesome if it happens. Let's not talk about other things. What if the money is not spent all and falls into the sea? So according to Yang Hao's idea, if possible, it is better to save these pirate ships as much as possible. In this way, not only can it carry property, but it can also go to other places for plunder. Speaking of which, it may not be a bad thing for Yang Hao to leave Bowen Town and enter the sea. In Bowen Town, although there is a stable income, it is not too much. But after going to sea, things are different. The wealth on the sea is immeasurable. If Yang Hao meets another, Shu's pirates, he will probably gain another fortune. Of course, even if he didn't meet such a fat sheep and plundered them along the way, his income would definitely not be lower than if he stayed in Bowen Town. Thinking of this, Yang Hao immediately decided on his next course of action. That is, the vicious ape goes out to fight, and not even a blade of grass grows. On the first day, you took your men to sail on the sea, and then gave them an order to plunder every land they came to. Of course, this operation was left to your men, and you just concentrated on practicing. On this day, you ate blue wave balls again to test the deformation of internal organs, especially the lungs, which will be more helpful to you when you encounter a shipwreck. The next day, there were no problems with your practice. Similarly, you did not encounter any land that could be docked. You continued to practice, and the pirate ship continued to sail. Time flies. On the third day, you wait until the statute of limitations has passed and eat another blue wave ball. This time, the transformation finally breaks through. Your lungs seem to have been strengthened, and the breathing that originally made a faint sound becomes grander, and with a little force, it becomes like a roaring wind. You are refreshed, and you carefully appreciate the state at this time. Close black lens bracket. On the fifth day, the pirate ship finally arrived at a land. Without saying a word, you immediately asked your men to go up and plunder. While you were taking advantage of the effect of the blue wave ball, you continued to exercise desperately. Soon, the pirates you came back with the harvest, and this time you went out to rob, and you actually got 3 million worth of property. You were very satisfied, rewarded the pirate men a little, and continued sailing. On the 15th day, with your efforts, the deformation of the enhanced lungs has completely stabilized, but you discovered another problem. That is, entering the lung enhanced state requires the assistance of the blue wave ball, but the potency of the ball is only 3 minutes. This aging problem is beginning to appear. For heart strengthening, 3 minutes may be useful, but lung strengthening, if it is only 3 minutes, it will not mean much to you. Therefore, you understand, in order for lung strengthening to be useful, you need to practice it to the point where it can be activated like other transformations without relying on the blue wave ball. Understanding this, you slightly adjusted the direction of your training. A month has passed, and you have plundered 5 villages, 2 merchant ships, and captured a pirate group. The value of the property gained is as high as 2,000 belly. You are very satisfied, because such a harvest is almost it can catch up with your simulated consumption, but what makes you more satisfied is the transformation training. After changing the direction of training, you have really strengthened your lungs and practice to the point where you can transform independently without the need for a blue wave ball. The only pity is that the heart strengthening has not reached this level. In view of this, you decide to strengthen the heart to the point of independent transformation first, and then study other transformations. There is no doubt that this is definitely a big project. But you have enough patience. Close black lens bracket. Time continues to pass, and the constant plundering has completely established your reputation as a ferocious ape. The entire West Blue has begun to spread the legend of you. You are extremely ferocious. You have robbed everything you have passed, and your reputation has spread. Here are Marines and bounty hunters who are specifically hunting you, and even fellow pirates are eyeing you. Close black lens bracket. In this regard, you are not surprised but happy. Are these people who are attacking you sending money? Close black lens bracket. While you are cultivating, you will enjoy it at the same time. Chapter 36 The lungs are strengthened, comparable to that of a fishman. 036 The lungs are strengthened, comparable to that of a fishman. At 2 months, your practice went awry again, and the enemy began to take advantage of the opportunity. After the fierce battle, you died. Close black lens bracket. The simulation ends, benign changes are obtained. 1. Autonomic lung strengthening. 2. Massive muscle strength, malignant changes are eliminated, and the body remains damaged. Close black lens bracket. The current Yang Hao is still in the stage of just leaving Bowen Town and going to sea. However, in the simulation, another 2 months passed. Yang Hao's property plummeted by 50 million. But the harvest is not small. There is no need to say much about muscle strength. In almost every simulation, Yang Hao will exercise whenever he has time. Although this simulation only lasted for 2 months, the muscle strength accumulated over time was not too little. Of course, the most critical thing is the deformation aspect. Now Yang Hao, in addition to strengthening his brain and heart, has mastered a new organ deformation. Strengthen your lungs. As we all know, the lungs are the main respiratory organs. Yang Hao's purpose of strengthening the lungs is also to enhance breathing. You know, although he has practiced his water skills very well, he is still a little weak in holding his breath. Yang Hao has tried it before, and he can currently hold his breath in the water for half an hour. This kind of time is already a long time. But if you want to reach the point of crossing the sea, it is obviously not enough. Therefore, if the lung function is further strengthened, the holding time will obviously be greatly increased. It won't take long as there are 2 hours, or even 1 hour, Yang Hao's ability to survive in the sea will be greatly improved. This is the purpose of Yang Hao's development of lung enhancement. However, the medicinal effect of the blue wave ball obviously inhibited this effect, or in other words, there was a conflict between the two parties. The lung strengthening that Yang Hao needs will take a long time. If it could only last 3 minutes, it was meaningless to him. This is how Yang Hao continued to develop lung strengthening exercises. And now, he obviously succeeded. Being able to enter the lung strengthening state independently without relying on the blue wave ball, his ability to survive at sea will naturally soar. By the way, can you fight Capone Becky on the ocean? Suddenly, Yang Hao thought of another way to deal with Capone Becky. That is to fight him on the sea. You must know that Yang Hao is not subject to the curse of the sea. If he fights with ability users on the sea, he will have a huge advantage. Especially now, after he has completely mastered lung strengthening, it is no exaggeration to say that the sea is his main battlefield. If he were to fight Capone Becky on the sea, he might be able to compete with him without the need for monster reinforcements. But Yang Hao thought about it and gave up the idea. Forget it, even if we can lure Capone Becky to fight at sea, it's not very safe. The most important thing is, even if we can defeat him, how much benefit can I get? Yang Hao suddenly realized a very critical issue, that is, defeating Capone Becky would not bring much benefit to him. In order to defeat Capone Becky, in addition to verifying his own strength, he also wanted to preserve Bowentown's industry. But now after some simulation, Yang Hao found that the rewards of going overseas are no less than those of staying in Bowentown, and there are many more opportunities to get rich. In this way, the industries in Bowentown are naturally dispensable to him. In this case, of course there is no need for him to talk to Capone Becky anymore. Even in the simulation, it will still cost Bailey. Unless there is enough interest in Capone Becky. But this time the other party came to deal with him, and Yang Hao didn't think Capone Becky had much treasure on him. Since the benefits and contributions are not equal, there is no need for him to hold on to Capone Becky. In addition, Yang Hao doesn't have many Baileys on hand anymore. It cost him 50 million to completely develop a lung enhancement device, and this was under relatively smooth conditions. One can imagine how many Baileys are needed to develop the deformation of other organs. In this situation, it would indeed be a waste to spend Pele on Capone Becky. Thinking of this, Yang Hao completely gave up the idea of continuing to fight with Capone Becky. When his thoughts returned to reality, Yang Hao suddenly transformed with a thought. He has grown taller, his body is covered with golden hair, and his tail has grown out from behind, but his face has not changed, and he looks like Son Goku. Exactly the human animal form. After entering the human animal form, Yang Hao chanted silently again. Lung strengthening. At this moment, Yang Hao's appearance did not change, but two waves of warmth suddenly appeared in his body. The location of the warm current is exactly in the lungs. There are not many Baileys left in hand, so Yang Hao plans to test the exact effect of lung strengthening in reality. The phenomenon of lung strengthening is obviously relatively restrained and hardly appears at all. However, Yang Hao still had changes at this time. First it was the sound of his breathing, which gradually became more obvious, and finally it became like the wind. Yang Hao felt it silently, but he didn't feel much. I just feel that my breathing is much smoother, and I can take a deep breath for a long, long time. This feeling is still a bit awkward. However, Yang Hao's face covered with golden hair showed a smile. This is undoubtedly proof that the lungs are strengthened. Of course, if you want to thoroughly verify it, the best way is to hold your breath and enter the sea. Thinking of this, Yang Hao didn't hesitate at all. After taking a deep breath, he jumped from the boat. Boom! Yang Hao's figure crashed into the sea, and when the turbid waves spread, he had already sunk into the sea. The cold sea water covered Yang Hao's whole body. He didn't feel the slightest discomfort. The previous practice had already made him have an affinity for the sea. Entering the sea is not much different from being on land. Especially after his lungs were strengthened, he no longer felt the slightest discomfort. Uproar. Yang Hao opened his hands and began to swim in the sea. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he continued to practice swimming. Of course, before this, Yang Hao had already memorized the time of entering the water and began to test his breath-holding limit. Uproar. As Yang Hao swam, the sea surface rippled violently, and even made rumbling sounds from time to time. The huge movement even made the pirates on the ship think they had encountered a sea monster. It wasn't until they saw Yang Hao's ape-like appearance that they breathed a sigh of relief. But the pirates were still shocked by this scene. Isn't this new captain a devil fruit user? How can you swim freely in the sea? This situation simply broke their common sense. Countless people were surprised and confused. However, Yang Hao had no idea of explaining this. These pirate men are just his tools. There is no need to explain at all. In this way, under the surprised gazes of the pirates, Yang Hao stayed in the sea for 3 hours before returning to the ship with a smile on his face. All the pirates could feel the new captain's joy. No wonder. Because of this situation, it means that after Yang Hao's lungs are strengthened, he can stay in the sea for 3 hours. For such a long time, he was comparable to a fish man. Chapter 37 The Ambition of the Gangster Godfather, West Blue Chaos. 037 The Ambition of the Gangster Godfather, West Blue Chaos. 3 days after Yang Hao left, a medium-sized sailing ship crossed the sea and arrived at Bowentown. Marine Colonel Masdar here quickly received the message. A Capone family member. Then Masdar understood. The Capone family's local gang has been wiped out, and now of course they have to send people to get it back. It's a pity that Yang Hao, the instigator, has already left early. What? Already left? Bowentown gang's original residence. A group of men in suits arrived here. The leader is a man in a suit, holding a cigar in his mouth. He is short in stature but has a rough face and cold eyes. It's none other than Capone Becky. After arriving here, Capone Becky quickly found out the news that Yang Hao had left, and his face darkened. Boss Becky, what should I do? Do you want to pursue me? One of his men came to Capone Becky and asked. Capone Becky did not speak, but the next second he made an unexpected move. Bang! He suddenly took out a firecracker and hit the subordinate directly. There was a look of astonishment under his hands, and he fell down clutching his chest. The faces of the surrounding men also changed drastically in an instant. Looking at his men lying in a pool of blood, Capone Becky scolded him with a gloomy face. Idiot! How can we catch up after they've all gone to sea? When the surrounding men heard this, they all remained silent. Capone Becky looked towards the coast and frowned. In fact, it is not impossible to pursue, but the problem is that the time spent here is too uncertain. It's very likely that even after a long pursuit, the vicious ape won't be able to be caught. He came here this time on the order of the current boss of the Capone family. But Capone Becky is not such an obedient person. In fact, he has long wanted to replace the current boss of the Capone family. But that old guy didn't know what news he had heard recently, and he was not given a chance to get close at all. So this time, Capone Becky planned to remove the head of the vicious ape to get close to the current boss. But now, Yang Hao has escaped, and his plan has failed. In this case, naturally we can only think of other ways. As for foolishly running to the sea to chase him, Capone Becky would not do such a thankless thing. That's all. Capone Becky didn't stay long in Bowen Town. After leaving a group of men to restore the gang industry, he left again. Marine Colonel Masdar breathed a sigh of relief. He also knew something about Capone Becky. Very ruthless and ruthless, he is currently the most dazzling rising star of the Capone family. It is said that he is also a devil fruit user. Masdar is naturally wary of such an existence. Now that the other party left without causing trouble, he couldn't help but relax. However, in the following days, Masdar soon discovered that the situation was not as stable as he imagined. It's true that Capone Becky didn't cause trouble here in Bowen Town, but he did stir up trouble in the Capone family. Half a month later, the boss of the Capone family died at the hands of Capone Becky. As one of the 5 major gangster families in West Blue, if something like this happens, the extent of its spread is absolutely astonishing. It is no exaggeration to say that they are all in turmoil because of this incident. The internal fighting and power struggle of the Capone family, as well as the covetousness and turf struggle of other gang families, have led to countless fights of various sizes in these days. And those bounty hunters, pirates, and marines either actively or passively join in. The turmoil spread further, and West Blue, which was already in chaos, suddenly turned into a mess. West Blue, completely in chaos. Yang Hao didn't know much about the chaos in West Blue. But soon, he also got feedback and intelligence from the robbery. Turn out to be, at the beginning, Yang Hao plundered several places, and everything went smoothly without encountering his peers or anyone else. But gradually, most of the lands they went to were visited by pirates. Some were gang fights, leaving a lot of traces. This situation also caused Yang Hao's gains to shrink instantly. It has only been less than a month, but the belongings in Yang Hao's warehouse can no longer keep up with his simulation progress. Wrong. It should be said that Yang Hao's wealth could not keep up with the progress of his simulation from the beginning. After all, many times, even 100 million belly is not enough for Yang Hao to spend an hour. But before that, the income from robbery was still acceptable to Yang Hao. Although its value is not enough for Yang Hao to simulate unscrupulously, it is still much more valuable than operating industries in Bowen Town. But in recent times, even Bowen Town can't compare with it, so Yang Hao naturally has to pay attention to it. After all, wealth is the key to his becoming stronger. Now that his wealth has shrunk, what will happen? After some inquiring, Yang Hao naturally understood the ins and outs of the matter. That Capone Becky guy actually killed the current boss of the Capone family. Yang Hao looked surprised. The current situation is actually very simple. Capone Becky killed the current boss of the Capone family, but still couldn't successfully take over. This method was so rebellious that most people in the Capone family still did not support him. Therefore, the Capone family at this time inevitably fell into civil strife. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the other 4 major gang families began to invade the Capone family's territory. As a result, the fight continued. These fights naturally attracted Marine. Some bounty hunters and pirates seemed to think there was something to gain and joined in. This situation, as far as Yang Hao knew, was not mentioned in the original work. But soon, Yang Hao came back to his senses. This situation is not mentioned in the original work, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. After going to sea, Capone Becky was known as the godfather of the gang. Does that mean that he eventually ruled the Capone family and even unified the West Blue gang? Thinking like this, Yang Hao couldn't help but nodded. I have to say that this situation is still very possible. After all, Capone and Becky later formed a group and went overseas. And based on his strength, no one in West Blue should be able to do anything to him. Therefore, he could not have escaped. The greater possibility is that after ruling the Capone family and even unifying the entire West Blue Gang, they formed the amazingly powerful Flame Tank Pirates and stepped into a larger world with the nickname, Gang Godfather. A small West Blue obviously cannot satisfy Capone Becky's ambition. So he brought an astonishing force to the Great Sea route. Thinking of this, Yang Hao's heart moved. Suddenly he had an idea. Chapter 38 Yang Hao's Multi-Stage Transformation and Sonic Attack with Enhanced Lungs. 038 Yang Hao's Multi-Stage Transformation and Sonic Attack with Enhanced Lungs. In view of the current situation in West Blue, Yang Hao suddenly had an idea. That is, can I also take advantage of the chaos and make a fortune? In fact, sooner or later, Yang Hao will take advantage of the 5 major gangs in West Blue. After all, these 5 major gang families are obviously the richest people in West Blue. If Yang Hao doesn't have this strength, forget it. But as he obtained the ape fruit ability, his power increased rapidly. Now, he obviously has the ability to plunder the 5 major gang families. Of course, you can't be too arrogant, you still have to make a plan. But now, Yang Hao suddenly realized that this was a good opportunity. The chaos in West Blue caused by the Capone family's internal strife will make West Blue more dangerous, but isn't this a good opportunity? In that case, let's try it. With this idea, Yang Hao immediately asked his men to sail the pirate ship to Chugu Town. In West Blue, Chugu Town is equivalent to Rog Town in the East China Sea. It is an important pass for West Blue to enter the great shipping route. Such a geographical location means prosperity. So not only West Blue's largest marine branch, but also the headquarters of West Blue's 5 major gang families are all in Chugu Town. Yang Hao decided to take the opportunity to make a fortune, and the best place was of course to go to Chugu Town. Not only is there a lot of money there, but it's also bordering the Grand Line. If anything goes wrong, just escape to the Grand Line. Speaking of which, Yang Hao's current strength is actually enough to enter the Grand Route. Even in the first half of the Grand Line, he was not considered a weakling. It is not difficult to gain a foothold with such power. As for the navigation issue, Yang Hao is not too worried. After these days of sailing, he found that sailing was not as dangerous as he imagined. When he simulated before, the reason why he died in a shipwreck at sea was entirely because he was alone and encountered bad weather. But now, with a group of pirates, there are many navigators among these pirates. Although they are not as good as Nami, they are more than enough to cope with ordinary navigation situations. So these days, they are all at peace at sea. Of course, the most important thing is that Yang Hao's water properties have improved and he has completely mastered lung strengthening. In this way, even if there is a shipwreck that these navigators cannot handle and the ship capsizes, Yang Hao's survival rate will be very high. In general, the only question now is whether Yang Hao can take advantage of the 5 major gangs of West Blue with his current strength. Regarding this point, Yang Hao is quite confident. As for the reason, it is naturally because he has become stronger again during this period. After thoroughly mastering lung strengthening, he simulated it many times one after another. These simulations are also very rewarding. In terms of heart strengthening, Yang Hao still has not reached the point of deforming at will, but in the deformation of other organs, Yang Hao has made great breakthroughs. To put it simply, he has developed many new transformations. Among them are eye strengthening, nose strengthening, ear strengthening, and gastrointestinal strengthening. These enhancements, like the heart enhancement, still cannot reach the point of random deformation, but require the help of the power of the blue wave ball. But even so, Yang Hao's methods have become more diverse. Among them, eye strengthening can greatly increase Yang Hao's vision. The strengthened nose will allow him to acquire a keen sense of smell like a dog. Ear strengthening means increasing hearing. The final gastrointestinal enhancement is to enhance digestion ability, allowing Yang Hao to become a big stomach eater. So far, Yang Hao's transformation has gone through more than a dozen stages. These transformations not only enhanced his strength, but also greatly enriched his methods. Let the relatively monotonous animal fruit abilities become diversified. It is no exaggeration to say that this ape fruit ability was simply exploited by Yang Hao. Originally, when it came to animal fruit abilities, Chopper was probably the first person to develop them. Studying the 7-stage deformation of the blue wave ball. Such a situation is simply unprecedented, and it is also unprecedented in the original work. But now this name has obviously been replaced by Yang Hao. And with the continuous development, Yang Hao has a hunch that it is far from the limit of the ape fruit's ability. Yang Hao was looking forward to where the limit of the ape fruit would be. Hee. Thinking of the wonderful thing, Yang Hao couldn't help but smile. Next, since he had no money to simulate, Yang Hao simply started practicing in reality. Yang Hao did not use the newly added transformations and heart enhancements rashly. After all, these transformations require the use of blue wave balls. After eating, there will be a 6-hour CD. It's okay in simulation, but in reality, you need to use it with caution. After all, if Yang Hao encounters any strong enemy within these 6 hours, he will be in trouble. So in reality, what Yang Hao practices are transformations that can be used at will. Arm strengthening, strengthening of the feet, fur reinforcement, mind strengthening, When using brain enhancement, Yang Hao mainly uses it for thinking, such as problems in cultivation, judgment of the current situation, etc. This time, Yang Hao, whose head was as big as a bucket, suddenly had inspiration. By the way, can strengthened lungs be used to derive attack methods? Seizing this inspiration, Yang Hao thought carefully. After a while, Yang Hao restrained his mind enhancement and entered the lung enhancement deformation. At this time, his appearance looked the same, and he still looked like a king. But there are two warm currents in the body, condensing in the lungs. Silently feeling the changes in his body, Yang Hao came to the guardrail and looked at the calmer sea. Suddenly, he took a deep breath. An amazing scene appeared. Yang Hao's chest swelled visibly to the naked eye. Viewed from the side, it has grown in size. This is the expansion caused by gas entering the chest and abdomen. But this level is very shocking. After the expansion reached the limit, Yang Hao suddenly relaxed again. But at the same time, he suddenly opened his bloody mouth. Roar. Yang Hao roared towards the empty sea. An incredible situation ensued. The air in front of Yang Hao suddenly became simulated and distorted, and a huge roar turned into translucent sound waves and began to sweep away. Boom boom boom. The sea in front of me suddenly fluctuated, and the relatively calm sea surface seemed to be boiling, with countless seawater breaking and jumping. The surrounding pirates were also frightened, and the pirates on the same ship who were close to him even subconsciously covered their ears and screamed. Some people had blood seeping into their ears, as if they had been severely injured. When Yang Hao saw this, he immediately became energetic. This is sound wave. He roared and actually formed a sonic attack. The inspiration he had just now was indeed right. After the lung function is powerful to a certain extent, corresponding attack methods can be derived. Just like the current sonic attack. Of course, this is also because Yang Hao, who has the ability of an ape, roars as loudly as a tiger's roar. As a result, with the increase in lung strengthening, a qualitative change has occurred, forming a sonic attack with damaging effects. Realizing this, Yang Hao suddenly discovered that the deformation of organs may not only increase the diversity of methods, but also improve the strength, but he has not discovered it yet. After thinking about this, Yang Hao couldn't help but feel excited. The ape fruit ability is getting more and more fun. Chapter 39. Strong body, strengthened intestines and stomach. 039 Strength of body, strengthening of intestines and stomach. On this day, the weather was sunny and the sea was peaceful. On the calm sea, 6 pirate ships gradually appeared. On the leader's pirate ship, a young man with his upper body covered naked was standing on the ground with one hand and his feet in the air, rising and falling slowly. The muscular and well-proportioned body hangs upside down, silently interpreting power and beauty. Under him, sweat had accumulated into an astonishing puddle. The surrounding pirates all looked at this side with awe. This young man with a handsome face is none other than Yang Hao. 10 days have passed since he finished spending Bailey. During these 10 days, he could not simulate, so he had to practice in reality. Because he is already very familiar with his abilities, these days, Yang Hao is focusing on training instead. Regarding exercise, Yang Hao has never fallen behind from the beginning. Later, even if it was about cultivating abilities, I would still find time to practice. So Lin Lin finally figured out that his current physique was much stronger than that of ordinary people. Even an ordinary person's ability to eat ordinary animal fruits and gain increased physical strength is probably not as good as him. Now Yang Hao's figure is not as thin as when he first started traveling. Instead, his muscles are well proportioned and tied together, making him look like a sculpture. Yang Hao has tried it. In human form, even if he can lift 1,000 kilograms of things with one hand, it is effortless. Of course, compared to simulation, practicing in reality is not too painful. But Yang Hao is well aware of the dangers of this world, so he would be too aggrieved if he did nothing when he was free and just lay there. If something unexpected happened because of this, he would be too aggrieved. So Yang Hao gritted his teeth and persisted in these 10 days. Even if his muscle strength increases a little, it will give him a little more confidence when facing danger. Thinking like this, Yang Hao gritted his teeth, changed his hand, and did another 100 push-ups with one hand. Call. He breathed a long sigh of relief, and then his body became limp. The small puddles formed by the sweat directly soaked his body. He didn't care. Instead, he turned his head and said downward, "Let's eat." Even without transformation, Yang Hao was still full of energy. The sound spread, and the pirates below suddenly started to work in a hurry. Even the pirates on several other pirate ships were not idle, and they all moved to the main ship to bring food. A large amount of food quickly gathered on the deck. Yang Hao transformed into a human animal form. After eating a blue wave ball, he rushed towards the food, opened his hands, and crazily stuffed the food into his mouth. At this moment, he seemed to be transformed into a super meat grinder, crushing and devouring the food quickly and quickly. The pirates around him were so used to it that they were even a little numb. At first, Yang Hao ate a lot, but later on, it became more and more astonishing. Now what he can eat alone is as good as what 100 people can eat. Noticing the surprised expressions of the surrounding pirates, it was Yang Hao who was eating like crazy, with a smile in his eyes. The reason why he became able to eat is actually very simple. It's just that the back body is stronger and has ape abilities. This also allows him to consume more physical strength, requiring him to replenish more energy. It is worth mentioning, originally, Yang Hao didn't pay much attention to eating or anything. But after mastering the gastrointestinal enhancement, he once had a whim and tried to use the gastrointestinal enhancement to eat. From then on, Yang Hao made a surprising discovery. In addition to replenishing energy, food also has the effect of strengthening the body. Of course, this effect is minimal unless you can eat a lot of food. Originally, Yang Hao's food intake was only very ordinary. Even after gaining the ability of the ape fruit, it was not too much. But after using gastrointestinal strengthening, it is different. A large amount of food is digested by the body very quickly, and the feeling of strengthening the body becomes obvious. This speed is even faster than high-intensity exercise. Ever since, while Yang Hao was exercising, he also did not forget to use gastrointestinal strengthening to strengthen his body. Unfortunately, the transformation of gastrointestinal strengthening can currently only be achieved through the blue wave ball. In other words, even if Yang Hao is hungry at some point, he cannot use gastrointestinal enhancement and can only wait until 6 hours for the effects of the medicine to pass. But even so, in the past 10 days, Yang Hao's body has become stronger again. 3 minutes later, the food on the floor was cleared, and Yang Hao burped. The amazing thing is that even after eating so much, his stomach didn't change at all. And this is the magic of gastrointestinal strengthening. The food was quickly digested by him without any accumulation or waste. It was directly transformed into body nutrition, achieving the effect of strengthening the body. After eating, his body had also been strengthened slightly. At this time, Yang Hao didn't even feel tired. He simply jumped up again, returned to the bow of the ship, and continued to exercise. Now I don't have any money on hand, so this is all I can do. But Yang Hao has secretly decided. After you get money, you must normalize gastrointestinal strengthening as soon as possible. In this way, with 3 meals a day and exercise, his physical improvement is absolutely amazing. As the body becomes stronger, it will naturally increase the ape's ability. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that physical exercise does little to improve strength, Yang Hao would actually be willing to put more resources into improving his physical fitness. After all, in the later stages, the importance of physical fitness will become more and more prominent. It's all because physical fitness is related to domineering. Generally speaking, the stronger the person, the more domineering he will be. And this is also the reason why the animal-type fruit ability will be so popular in the later period. The current Yang Hao is already an animal-type fruit ability user. If he has a solid physique, he will have a huge advantage in the new world where he competes for dominance. In view of this, if you have not mastered gastrointestinal strengthening, forget it. But now that he has mastered gastrointestinal strengthening, Yang Hao feels that he can no longer exercise casually like before. Before entering the Grand Line, he can completely improve his physique to an astonishing level, laying a solid foundation for practicing domineering in the future. Of course, whether this idea can be implemented still depends on the next harvest in Chugu Town. Chugu Town. I hope you won't disappoint me. Yang Hao murmured and continued to practice. That's all. 2 more days passed. Yang Hao, who was practicing, suddenly heard the report from his subordinates. Captain, Chugu Town has arrived. Oh, Yang Hao heard the words and followed the sound. Looking far into the distance, I saw the outline of an island on the sea level. As the distance got closer, a very prosperous town in the distance came into view. Yang Hao suddenly had a smile on his lips. However, he did not take his men to the island immediately. Instead, he used the hundreds of thousands of Baileys he deliberately left behind to start the simulation again. After all, he doesn't know what the situation is in Chugu Town now. He would be in trouble if Capone Becky teamed up with the other 4 gangsters to ambush him up there. Although such a chance was very small, Yang Hao did not ignore it. Overall, it's better to be careful. Chapter 40 Gathering in Chugu Town, Capone Becky fights 5:40 gathers in Chugu Town, Capone Becky fights against 5. You brought your men to Chugu Town. You immediately asked your men to collect intelligence, including yourself. After all, you know nothing about the situation in Chugu Town and can't make a plan at all. Time flies and 1 day passes. You return to the pirate ship and start gathering information. Sure enough, as you found out, the headquarters of the 5 major gang families are all in Chugu Town. There are indeed constant fights, big and small, but the gang headquarters has not been uprooted. As for the ownership of the Capone family, it is still not determined. In addition, you also collected information about Colonel Marine of the Marine branch of Chugu Town. As the pass through which West Blue enters the Grand Route, Chugu Town is of obvious importance, so Colonel Marine here is not weak in strength. But what may surprise you is that this Colonel Marine named Yellen, in addition to being weak in strength, in addition to the common people, there was a secret nickname for a money-grubbing man. Many pirate subordinates found out that if they wanted to enter the Grand Line through Chugu Town, they only needed to give money to Yellen. Close black lens bracket. In addition to the above, you also inquired about the situation of other forces in Chugu Town. Of course, the authenticity of this information needs to be further confirmed, so in the following time, you will lead your subordinates to continue to confirm the information. Close black lens bracket. The simulation is over. This simulation has not produced any positive changes, so no selection will be made. Close black lens bracket. After spending hundreds of thousands of Baileys, Yang Hao had a preliminary understanding of the situation in Chugu town. The headquarters of the 5 major mafia families are indeed here. And it is indeed in turmoil right now, with constant fighting, large and small. What surprises Yang Hao is that until now, Capone Becky has not conquered the Capone family. With his strength, it should be easy to push horizontally, right? Capone Becky, who possesses the castle fruit, is a complete war machine. The military strength hidden in his body, if not released actively, will hardly be damaged with the protection of his castle. After the victory, Capone Becky can absorb more prisoners and quickly increase his troops. As the war progresses, Capone Becky's military strength and firepower will only become stronger and stronger. With such ability, it shouldn't be difficult to clean up a gang, or even unify the West Blue gang. But soon, Yang Hao understood. It is not that simple to conquer the Capone family and even unify the West Blue underworld. The biggest problem here is not power, but distance. That's right, it's the distance. You must know that whether it is the Capone family or other gangs, their forces are also distributed in various areas of West Blue. These areas are divided by oceans. If you want to suppress these areas, you need to cross the sea. In this way, no matter how powerful Capone Becky is, his suppression speed will naturally not be much faster. Unless he reaches the level of Whitebeard, who can respond to hundreds of responses and control an island with one word. But obviously, no. Therefore, the current situation of the gang is still uncertain. Wanting to understand this, Yang Hao nodded secretly. He wants to make a fortune in this gang war, and the best time is, of course, in the chaos. Otherwise, if he causes trouble again when everything is settled, Capone Becky may be targeting him again. Of course, the current Yang Hao is stronger than before and has more transformations. Even if he cannot defeat Capone Becky, he is confident that he can escape easily. But being targeted by the opponent is ultimately a problem. Being able to make money easily, Yang Hao certainly didn't want to get into trouble. After filtering the gang situation in his mind, Yang Hao thought about the information he had found about Colonel Marine in Chugu town. Yellen. Yang Hao murmured. Regardless of the opponent's strength, since the opponent is a money grubber, it's easy. When the time comes, if you want to enter the Grand Line, just stuff your money. If he could really make a fortune from the 5 major gangs, Yang Hao would naturally not mind spending part of it to send Colonel Yellen away. But the problem is that Yang Hao's money is not so easy to get. To a certain extent, Yang Hao is also a money grubber. If the other party is not strong enough, he is not willing to pay this amount of money. When the time comes, just call out. Of course, the strength of Colonel Marine, who can guard the passes of the Great Shipping Route, should not be much different. Even if it's not as good as Smoker from East Sea Log Town, it shouldn't be much weaker. We can only wait for Yang Hao to continue to inquire and confirm these. Next, Yang Hao calculated the last money on hand and found that there were still more than 2 million belly, so he continued to simulate. He felt that the information obtained from a simulation was not reliable. We have to continue to inquire. And it's not the big picture, but more details. For example, is Capone Becky currently in Autumn Valley? For example, how powerful is Colonel Yellen? This is information that needs to be carefully confirmed, so that Yang Hao can set up the most appropriate money-making plan based on this information. That's all. Once, twice, 3 times. Soon, Yang Hao conducted 3 more simulations. In the second simulation, Yang Hao obtained more information. For example, Capone Becky is indeed in Autumn Valley. In the next 2 simulations, Yang Hao personally went out to verify the intelligence. Mainly to verify the 5 major gangs. After some verification and inquiry, Yang Hao was surprised to discover a piece of important information. That is, it turns out that the conflict between the 5 major gangs has become clear at this time. This situation is still related to Capone Becky. It turns out that Capone Becky really wants to replace the current boss and become the new boss of the Capone family. It's just that after he killed the current boss, he was busy conquering various important branches. As a result, at this moment, the other 4 major gangs began to seize the Capone family's territory. Capone Becky realized that after all this effort, even if he obtained the Capone family, his power would be greatly reduced, so he simply went all out and launched a challenge to the 4 major gangs. He actually issued a challenge to the 4 major gangs. No, with the power of the Capone family, Capone Becky is 1 versus 5. Challenge the 5 major gangs of West Blue on your own. After finding out this information, Yang Hao was surprised. But soon, he felt relieved again. After all, he originally thought that Capone Becky had unified the West Blue underworld and entered the Grand Line. But now, it is just to confirm his speculation. Judging from the situation and strength of Capone Becky's later generations, the outcome of this challenge is self-evident. But this challenge, whose outcome was already destined, made Yang Hao suddenly become excited. because he suddenly realized that this was a good opportunity to make money. The only problem now is Marine Colonel Yellen's side. If you want to give money, you'd better call. Regarding this question, Yang Hao still plans to find the answer in simulation. Chapter 41 Marine Colonel Yellen, a half-step swordsman. 041 Marine Colonel Yellen, half-step swordsman. When you arrived at the Chugu town island, you did not bring your men to the shore, but waited on the sea. Close black lens bracket. Time flies by, night falls, and after a rare rest for a long time, you recharge your batteries and start taking action. You don't alert any of your men, but quietly go into the sea alone. Close black lens bracket. The purpose of doing this is, of course, to deceive others and not attract anyone's attention. You know very well that you are now well known in West Blue. If you approach the coast rashly, you will most likely attract the attention of the forces in the town. Whether it's a gangster, a marine, or another pirate, you don't want to be discovered by any party. Your idea is to hide, hit it at the right time, and then escape quickly, close black lens bracket. But right now, your purpose is to personally explore the strength of Marine Colonel Yellen. When you get out of the sea, you directly enter the human animal form and activate the lung enhancement. It will take more than half an hour for the ship to reach the shore. You crossed over in just a few minutes. Close black lens bracket. When you come here, you will soon find a large number of ships docked on the coast. Chugu town is indeed the most important past town in West Blue. The prosperity here can be felt from the number of these ships. Close black lens bracket. You didn't make any noise, but sank into the sea, looking for a place to land quietly. Close black lens bracket. After a while, you finally found an uninhabited place, but this place was very remote and turned into a cliff. Close black lens bracket. No wonder there is no one here, you murmured, but did not stop. Instead, you jumped up and climbed directly to the cliff above the sea. Close black lens bracket. The moment you get out of the sea water, you suddenly switch from lung strengthening to arm strengthening, and this time the arm strengthening is biased towards the palms. Close black lens bracket. In an instant, the muscles in your palms became tight, and 10 sharp nails suddenly popped out from your fingers. With a pop, your nails penetrated directly into the hard cliff. Seeing this scene, you raised the corner of your mouth and said you were not surprised, and immediately the figure climbed up vigorously. For you, the cliff of tens of meters was like walking on flat ground. You successfully climbed up in less than a while. As expected, there was no trace of anyone on the cliff. You smiled, and then switched to strengthening your feet, turning into a golden shadow and flying away. A moment later, you arrived at Chugu town quietly and entered the marine branch. Close black lens bracket. Your idea is to avoid marine and go directly to Marine Colonel Yellen here. Close black lens bracket. Unfortunately, the first time you entered the marine branch, you were quickly discovered by the surveillance phone bug here. The alarm suddenly sounded, and marines began to pour out from everywhere. Who are you? Why are you trespassing in the marine branch? There were scoldings, and there were more and more marines. You let out a soft breath, and the state of strengthening your legs suddenly changed to strengthening your arms. Close black lens bracket. The first time you invade the marine branch, this situation is not beyond your expectation. Since there is no way to find Yellen directly, let's kill some marines first. With this idea, you directly launched unlimited firepower. Close black lens bracket. Stones like a hail of bullets splashed out in your hands. The marines who just poured out were stunned by you. 1 or 2 marine junior generals also fell into the crazy splash of rocks. Close black lens bracket. The power of these stones is stronger than bullets, so that the surrounding buildings have been damaged to a certain extent. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket killed dozens of people in a row, but marines still poured out in a steady stream, and began to point their blunderbuss pistols at you. Close black lens bracket. Bang bang bang. Soon, the marines also launched a counterattack. You rolled on the spot, entered the fur-strengthened state, and followed the inertia, turning into a big fur ball, heading towards the marines like a meat tank. Go away. Close black lens bracket. The marines suddenly fell on their backs. Because you rushed into the crowd, some marines did not dare to shoot rashly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, you flexibly returned to your beast form, and let out a roar with your lungs strengthened. Close black lens bracket. The roar formed a sound wave and swept away with a bang. The nearby marine screamed and fell down instantly, and the surrounding marines also showed signs of pain. This attack shocked the entire marine branch, and while Marine was silent, a distinctive figure comes quickly, and a cold light suddenly strikes you. You focused your eyes, stepped into the leg strengthening and quickly retreated. With a hiss, the cold light disappeared, and a long-haired figure appeared in front of you. He was holding a long sword and the marine clothes on his body were also very grand. It was none other than your target, Marine Colonel Yellen, nicknamed, Money Greedy, close black lens bracket. Marody Ape Yang Hao, why did you come to attack our branch? Yellen obviously recognized your identity and frowned. You grinned, without saying a word, and with a thickening of your arms, you unleashed unlimited firepower on Yellen, close black lens bracket. Whoosh, whoosh, a large number of stones burst out of the air, but this time, it did not have the desired effect. Yellen waved his sword and actually cut all the stones accurately. Close black lens bracket. You immediately understand that Yellen's swordsmanship skills are very good, but to what extent, you are not sure. Seeing that throwing stones does not work, you change to another attack method. Grabbing the giant stick on your back, you transformed into a human animal form and rushed toward Yellen. You plan to use melee combat to test Yellen's swordsmanship skills. Clang, 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 the giant stick was swung, and it immediately hit Yellen's back. Yellen's swordsmanship is good, but his strength is still much weaker than yours. Close black lens bracket. But soon, Yellen's long sword came back. Your stick skills are only basic after all, and are obviously not as good as the enemy's skills. The sharp sword blade soon made a wound on your body. With a thought in your mind, you tried to activate the first strengthened attack. As a result, the sharp sword blade was somewhat useless. The sharp attack was only on the panel. A slight wound was cut on the surface. Close black lens bracket. Seeing this scene, you finally understand the level of Yellen's swordsmanship. The opponent is not a swordsman yet. If he is a swordsman, Mingwu Zanti will definitely be able to easily break through your enhanced fur, but the opponent's swordsmanship is indeed somewhat exquisite. If I really want to describe it appropriately, I would probably be a half-step swordsman. Close black lens bracket. The strength of the half-step swordsman is obviously not as good as that of Smoker from Rog Town in the East China Sea, but as a Marine colonel, such strength is pretty good. But when you realize this, a smile appears on your face. Close black lens bracket. Because you know that a half-step swordsman is no match for you. Sure enough, when you once again unleashed the lung-strengthened sonic roar, Yellen was immediately stunned. Taking advantage of this opportunity, you swept your giant stick away, directly deflecting the opponent's long sword, and then swung it with the stick. On the opponent's head, something red and white exploded, and you killed Yellen, of course. Close black lens bracket. Chapter 42. The money-grubbing man's family background. 042. The money-grubbing man's family background. The death of Yellen made the Marines fear you. You chuckled and swaggered into the building inside the Marine branch. Close black lens bracket. As a vicious ape, you completely shocked Marine. As if you were in an uninhabited land, you headed straight to the warehouse of the Marine branch with a clear goal. After killing Yellen, your target will naturally be the other party's property. Since the other party is a money grubber, he should have a lot of property, right? Close black lens bracket. Weapon depot, rest room, training room, and soon you found the property room of the Marine branch. However, in the end, the harvest in the property room surprised you, and it turned out to be only a few million belly. Close black lens bracket. The simulation ends, resulting in benign changes, 1 combat experience, and no malignant changes. Close black lens bracket. At this moment, a lot of information suddenly surged in Yang Hao's mind. This is combat experience gained in simulation. While receiving the combat experience, Yang Hao looked at the content of the simulation and fell into deep thought. This time's simulation, the battle with the money-grubbing Yellen, did not surprise him much. Even if the opponent is not a half-step swordsman, but a real swordsman, he may not be his opponent. Because of this battle, Yang Hao didn't even use the heart enhancement. But what makes Yang Hao most satisfied is actually the effects of various deformations during the simulation. After possessing multiple transformations, his abilities and methods have indeed increased. Whether traveling through mountains and rivers, or facing the siege of many people, he has become more comfortable. What dissatisfied Yang Hao the most was naturally the final property harvest. Yellen is nicknamed a money grubber. How could he only have a few $1 million in wealth? However, Yang Hao thought about it and soon understood. It seems that those millions belong not to Yellen, but to the Marine branch. Yellen's money may not be in the Marine branch. It's right when you think about it. How could Yellen's own money be put together with the money from the Marine division? In other words, his money is not in the Marine branch. But if it's not the Marine branch, where would it be? Yang Hao found that he still thought too simply. But it's Marine's money, or the gang's money, so it shouldn't be easy to get. Certainly. The solution to this problem is also very simple. Just ask yourself. For example, Marine, just ask Yellen directly. As long as you can beat the other party, it shouldn't be a problem to dig out the money from the other party. Wanting to understand this, Yang Hao immediately continued to simulate. As night falls, you quietly go into the sea. After a long journey on a familiar road, you use your deformation flexibly and arrive at the Marine branch of Chugu Town again. Because of your previous experience, you took the initiative to rush in the direction of Yellen. Unfortunately, you were discovered halfway. As a Marine shouted, a large number of Marines began to pour in from all directions. You were helpless for a while and could only face the difficulty. This time, Yellen appeared faster, waving a long sword, and rushed towards you, close black lens bracket. Based on your previous experience, without saying a word, you charged forward with a long stick. After a fierce battle, you suddenly used roaring sound waves and took the opportunity to injure Yellen again. However, at this time, the surrounding Marine seeing that something was wrong, he also started to use pistols and muskets for auxiliary attacks. For a while, you couldn't take down Yellen. After another stalemate for a while, you shook your head, ate a blue wave ball, and entered a heart-strengthened state. Close black lens bracket. With doubled strength, you ignored the attacks from the surrounding Marines and rushed straight to Yellen's side. The long sword swung from the opposite side was easily knocked away by you. Then, with a punch of your fist, Yellen was killed directly. Yellen was knocked unconscious and captured alive, and then he wrapped Yellen and escaped from the Marine branch before the Marines surrounded him. Close black lens bracket. The 3-minute effect of the drug passes quickly and the heart-strengthening state subsides. This has no impact on your behavior at all. After a while, you, in your animal form, took Yellen to the outskirts of Chugu town. Close black lens bracket. Yellen was soon woken up by you. When he opened his eyes, he saw you transformed into King Kong. That fierce aura made him feel awe-inspiring and his face turned pale. The next step is naturally the time for torture, but what surprises you is that before you speak, Yellen begs for mercy first. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I can give you money, a lot of money. Hearing this, you couldn't help but look playful. It seems that this money-grubbing guy is quite smart. Before you even opened your mouth, he hit your target. Of course, this is probably because Yellen the concept of money is very strong. When encountering a problem, the first thing that comes to mind is to use money to solve it. Close black lens bracket. So next, you easily learned from Yellen's mouth where the other party hid the money. Sure enough, it was not at the Marine branch, but at the residence he rented secretly. Close black lens bracket. With Yellen, you soon returned to a place in Chugu town. This is a 2-story house that looks very old. It doesn't look like a treasury hiding a huge sum of money at all. But soon, you followed Yellen's footsteps. You suddenly realize. Close black lens bracket. It turns out that there is a secret basement underneath the house, and the basement is where the real money is hidden. After a while, you will see the treasure piled up like a hill as you wish. There are hundreds of millions of treasures here. You were so pleasantly surprised that you immediately asked Yellen about the exact location of this place and the details of the operation of the institutions. But in the end, you did not let Yellen go, but continued to torture him, trying to find out more money that the other party might have hidden. Unfortunately, until her death, Yellen always denied other places to hide money. It seems that the money here is indeed all the property he owned. It is right to think about it. After all, a Marine colonel can make hundreds of millions of belly. Already amazing. Close black lens bracket. Simulation ends. Good changes obtained. 1 combat experience. 2 intelligence provided by Yellen. No malignant changes. Another simulation ended, and Yang Hao was refreshed. Before he spent all his Baileys, he finally made another major gain. Money greedy, he knew where Yellen hid his money. This guy is greedy for 100 million belly. So many Baileys are enough for Yang Hao to simulate well. Even directly simulating the best results for Chugu Town and his party is not a problem. The best thing is that even if he doesn't attack the Marine branch in reality, he can bring back the money. All because in reality, only Yellen knows where he hides his money. He would not have imagined that someone could figure out where he hid his money in the simulated world. In other words, Yang Hao, who has this secret information, can completely get rid of Yellen's hidden money without anyone noticing. When Yellen finds out later, he probably won't be traced. Very good, go now. Yang Hao smiled. Without further ado, he decided to set off as soon as evening came. Of course, to be on the safe side, he still spent some Baileys and simulated it twice beforehand. After there were no accidents, he was completely relieved. Chapter 43 100 million, Clear Cultivation Ideas. 043 100 million, Clear Cultivation Ideas. Night falls. 6 pirate ships were anchored on the sea some distance away from the island where Chugu Town is located. On the main ship headed by the leader, the figure flashed and turned with a thud. An ape suddenly appeared in the sea. It was none other than Yang Hao. After simulating it twice and feeling that there was no problem, Yang Hao took advantage of the darkness and took action directly. He is very good at water, even when diving, his speed is not slow. In addition, with strengthened lungs, you can really swim in the sea like a fish man. Soon, Yang Hao approached the coast of the island, but this direction was obviously wrong. There were many ships. Yang Hao didn't say anything and immediately started to circle around to search. At this moment, Yang Hao felt a little emotional. It would be great if the content of the simulation was not text, but pictures and texts, or even images. It is worth mentioning that when Yang Hao turned on the simulation system, the simulation content he obtained was always displayed in text. Although Yang Hao can also learn a lot through text, there are also many limitations. After all, the text is simplified. So now in reality, Yang Hao doesn't know the exact location of the uninhabited coast, he only knows that it does exist. But it would be convenient if there were images. Yang Hao could directly write down the direction and route and arrive in one step. There are obvious benefits to having a better understanding of simulation content. As mentioned before, the butterfly effect exists. The insignificant flutter of a butterfly's wings may cause a storm in an unknown place. Yang Hao came to this realization soon after using the simulation system. In view of this, the fewer the errors between his actions in reality and those in the simulation, the more similar or even the same results will naturally occur. Unfortunately, this aspect cannot be forced at present. Fortunately, from Yang Hao's point of view, finding an uninhabited place to land is the same as in the simulation. So that should be a good thing too. After a while, Yang Hao found the cliff mentioned in the simulation. Without saying a word, he jumped from the ground like a rocket. Then there was a roar. The claws formed in the strengthened state of his arm were inserted into the cliff wall. Only this time, what was different from the simulation was that Yang Hao's palm was empty and he used too much force to directly grab the rock. Thump. The next second, Yang Hao's figure fell into the sea. Oh, I missed it. Yang Hao was speechless when his head emerged from the sea again. This scene is obviously different from the simulation. But at this time, he was not as frightened as he was when he first started using the simulation system. The real situation is different from the simulation, and unexpected situations may indeed evolve. But with his current strength, it is enough to deal with ordinary accidents. Therefore, Yang Hao's expression did not change much. Another leap to the cliff. This time, Yang Hao did not miss, but stuck firmly on the cliff, and then began to climb quickly. Soon, a 2-meter-tall ape jumped onto the cliff. After taking a glance and finding no one around, Yang Hao strengthened his feet and turned into a golden shadow and disappeared. This time, he naturally did not go to the marine branch in Chugu town, but went straight to the place where Yellen hid the money. There were no accidents during this process. He quietly entered the house, entered the basement through the mechanism, and successfully pocketed 100 million. Call. Although he had expected this result and simulated it twice, Yang Hao couldn't help but let out a long breath of excitement when he actually 100 million won belly. Should we take the money back, or should we simulate it directly here? Yang Hao thought for a while and decided to take the money back. Because next, the direction he plans to simulate is to completely master the strengthening of the intestines and stomach, and use the strengthening of the intestines and stomach to strengthen the body with twice the result with half the effort. Here, it's not very convenient. But before going back, Yang Hao still spent some money and simulated the process of going back. After finding that it was still going well, he left with the money. There is no need to simulate this kind of action with almost no danger many times. After a while, Yang Hao braved the darkness and returned to the coast. But it is a bit difficult to take Bailey back to the pirate ship. Of course, this is not difficult for Yang Hao. Taking the money, he jumped directly into the sea, but when he was almost like water, his whole body swelled up. The hair is soaring, as if it has entered a first-strengthened state. A plop. The sea water splashed open, and half of Yang Hao's body sank into the sea water, but because his fur was too thick, he did not sink completely in the end. The money was on top of his head, held calmly and not wet by the sea water. Although there is a high chance that it can be used after it gets wet, since Yang Hao has a way to protect it, he will not waste it. After stabilizing, Yang Hao adjusted his form, and finally successfully returned to the pirate ship with the money. It is worth mentioning. There are also pirates patrolling the pirate ship at night. This is Yang Hao's arrangement to prevent them from being noticed by other forces without knowing it. Of course, this kind of patrol has little effect. At least that's the case for Yang Hao. He quietly avoided the pirates' eyes and ears and returned to the cabin. The originally empty warehouse became full again. Yang Hao smiled and immediately activated the mind enhancement without hesitation. A creature with a head as big as a bucket, like an alien ape, appeared on the spot. Since he has thoroughly mastered mind enhancement, Yang Hao will often use mind enhancement to conduct a brainstorming session before the simulation starts. With the help of enhanced brain power, you can think and plan, and you will get twice the result with half the effort. This time, there was no exception. After some thinking, Yang Hao's ideas became clearer. He finally decided not to strengthen his stomach and improve his physique, but to focus on cultivating his stomach and intestines first, and train it as much as possible to the point where he could change it at will without the help of a blue wave ball. In this way, when you use gastrointestinal strengthening to improve your body, you don't have to worry about the time it takes for the medicine to take effect. Speaking of which, after thoroughly mastering gastrointestinal strengthening, the benefits are also visible to the naked eye. By then, even if there is no need for simulation, his physical speed will not be too slow in reality. Wanting to understand this, Yang Hao started a new simulation. On the first day, you ate blue wave balls and began to enter the gastrointestinal strengthening state. This time, you did not eat and drink too much, but carefully felt your body in the gastrointestinal strengthening state. This was exactly what you had done before. Master the experience of brain strengthening and lung strengthening. Close black lens bracket. In fact, in your opinion, it is not difficult to completely master gastrointestinal strengthening. After all, in terms of danger, brain strengthening and lung strengthening are no less dangerous than gastrointestinal strengthening, especially brain strengthening. It's just that after practicing and developing again and again, you have not made much progress. The strengthening of the gastrointestinal tract and the strengthening of the heart seem to be stuck at a bottleneck, but you have not given up. Once, twice, 1 month, 2 months. Chapter 44. completely strengthen the gastrointestinal tract, soar in physical fitness, face Capone Becky again. 044 thoroughly strengthened the gastrointestinal tract, the body soared, and faced Capone Becky again. The simulation ends. Obtain benign changes, 1 random gastrointestinal strengthening, eliminate malignant changes, 1 anorexia. Close black lens bracket. Another simulation ends. Yang Hao was refreshed and finally mastered random gastrointestinal strengthening. However, when he saw that his property had dropped by 1/3, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. With the experience of brain strengthening and lung strengthening, he did not expect that he would have to spend close to 30 million belly to completely master the gastrointestinal strengthening. It is not a successful simulation, but it has been experienced countless times. He even developed anorexia because of practicing gastrointestinal strengthening. Fortunately, these bad factors have been eliminated by the simulation system, otherwise it would be ridiculous. Even if you completely master gastrointestinal strengthening, what will happen if you develop anorexia? Hee. Yang Hao chuckled secretly, still feeling a little happy. Although it costs a lot, the results are still good. Moreover, it takes almost no effort to obtain the funds he currently has. Even if you spend all your money, you won't feel bad, as long as you gain something, that's it. Now that he has completely mastered gastrointestinal enhancement, Yang Hao naturally changed his simulation plan. In the past, the main practice was to strengthen the intestines and stomach, so now, naturally, it is used to strengthen the intestines and stomach, so that the body can quickly soar. Of course, it's not that Yang Hao doesn't practice the rest of the transformations, but that he has now practiced to the point where he can transform independently, so there is no great need. For example, eyes are strengthened, ears are strengthened, and noses are strengthened. These deformations can only be used under certain circumstances. As for heart strengthening, if it can be deformed at will, it will indeed get a huge boost. But the problem is that heart strengthening is different from other strengthening. It is a skill that consumes a lot of money on the body and even shortens one's life. Cultivating it to the point where it can be transformed at will is not entirely a good thing. So after much thought, Yang Hao decided that it would be better to improve his physical fitness first. After all, as your physique improves, your various abilities and powers will also increase. Maybe as your body becomes stronger, the side effects of heart strengthening will become less severe. After thinking about this, Yang Hao no longer hesitated and immediately started a new simulation. On the first day, when you start practicing, the main thing is to exercise your body, and secondly to practice your ability. But this time, your most important thing is to use the strengthening of your intestines and stomach to improve your physique. Close black lens bracket. On the 7th day, there was a huge commotion in Chugu town. It seemed that Capone Becky took action, but you ignored it. Close black lens bracket. In the first month, you can feel that your body has become significantly stronger. As you can imagine, the two-pronged approach of exercise and gastrointestinal strengthening has an amazing effect on physical growth. Open black lens bracket the second month, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket first year, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket second year, close black lens bracket. The simulation is over, benign changes are obtained, 1 amazing muscle strength, 2 ability application experience, eliminate malignant changes, 1 aversion to exercise, and offensive emotions towards food. In the simulation world, more than 2 years have passed. The Bailey in Yang Hao's hand also fell below 10 million. At this point, he finally ended the simulation. As soon as the simulation ended, an astonishing amount of muscle power swept through Yang Hao's body. It is different from the past, which used to spread like a hot spring, but this time, it actually swept like a storm. The unprecedented muscle strength immediately caused great changes in Yang Hao's body. Originally, his figure was just full of muscle outlines and looked thin. But this time, the muscles became extremely obvious. It was not an explosion, but it seemed to contain infinite power. As soon as Yang Hao clenched his fist, he felt that he could easily blow up a wall even without transforming. Compared to his muscle strength and experience in using abilities, they were a bit insignificant. Yang Hao's eyes lit up. This effect is much better than imagined. Originally, Yang Hao thought that 2 years of training in the simulated world, coupled with gastrointestinal strengthening, would at most achieve twice the result with half the effort. But now it seems that the real effect is comparable to his 6 or 7 years of hard training in reality. One can imagine how much his physique has improved at this time. Yang Hao's spirit was greatly boosted. It's no wonder that this time, disgust and conflict with food will arise again. In fact, this time, his improvement has been too great. Now even if he has never tried the ape ability, he can still know that because of the sudden increase in his body, the power of the ape ability will definitely increase greatly. Yang Hao's eyes flickered. Before entering the Grand Line through Chugu town, he was still thinking of giving money to Marine Colonel Yellen. But now, it seems, there is no need for this at all. Originally, Yellen was no match for him, let alone his physical strength. If Yellen doesn't have the foresight to stop him by then he can simply destroy the opponent, and it won't take much effort anyway. Of course, it is no longer a problem on Yellen's side. What Yang Hao has to consider now is Capone Becky's side. It is worth mentioning that in this simulation, the 1-on-5 situation between Capone and Becky still happened. He was busy getting stronger in the simulation, so naturally he had no time to pay attention. But now, back to the real world, I definitely want a piece of the pie. He had this plan originally, but now that Yang Hao has become stronger again, he is naturally more determined. He even considered whether he should face Capone Becky again to see if he could defeat him with his current strength. If that doesn't work, it's natural to take advantage of the chaos and make a fortune before leaving. But if possible, it seems that there is no need for Yang Hao to leave. All because if he can defeat Capone Becky, he can completely kill him, replace him, and unify the West Blue underworld. Thinking of this, Yang Hao couldn't help but get a little excited. If the power was strong enough, who would be willing to play so many tricks, calculating here and planning there? If he has enough power, he can push and suppress him all the way. And this is actually the correct way to use the simulation system. Yang Hao did this before, but he was temporarily stuck when he met Capone Becky. Originally, he thought that in order to gain the power to defeat or even defeat Capone Becky, he had to reach the Grand Line. But now it seems that this is no longer necessary. With his current strength, he can definitely try to deal with Capone Becky. Even if you can't compete, you can still escape with absolute confidence. Of course, you still have to really try to know whether you can beat it. Only by figuring this out can Yang Hao make a better decision on his next action. Very good, in that case, let's try it. Yang Hao nodded secretly. Right now, he still has 10 million Baileys left, which should be enough to try. Of course, before officially starting to try, Yang Hao should first familiarize himself with the ape's ability in the simulation due to the sudden increase in physical strength. Only when he was able to perfectly utilize his increased power did he officially start trying to capture Capone Becky. Chapter 45 Fight again to break the defense, the castle's huge weakness. 045 Fight again to break the defense, the castle's huge weakness. After spending another million Baileys on simulation, Yang Hao became thoroughly familiar with the current ape's abilities. Just as Yang Hao had thought before, the ape's abilities also became much stronger as his body improved. This range, calculated by Yang Hao, is at least half stronger. This kind of power also brings greater confidence to Yang Hao. Next, of course, we have to try to deal with Capone Becky. Yang Hao continued to think intensively as usual before officially entering the simulation. You continue to use gastrointestinal strengthening to improve your physical fitness and training ability, and you are not in a hurry to deal with Capone Becky, because you know that there are still several days before Capone Becky and the gang have a complete conflict. However, apart from practicing, you have not been idle. At the same time, you have also ordered your subordinates to start searching for information in Chugu town. Whether you want to confront Capone Becky when there is a complete conflict, or whether you want to find him alone before that, you haven't thought about it yet. Everything needs to be decided based on specific information. On the first day, you are immersed in cultivation, and the same is true on the second day. Close black lens bracket. On the third day, your subordinates received information that Capone Becky was somewhere in Chugu town. At this time, you suddenly realized a question, that is, whether Capone Becky's strength has improved.
Logically speaking, in such a short period of time, Capone Becky's strength should not be as strong as yours. It's like a qualitative change. Close black lens bracket. But the opponent's castle fruit ability is really possible. After all, as long as he has enough and strong weapons, he can greatly increase his attack power. And the opponent plans to challenge the 5 gangs with 1 against 5, so he obviously relies on firepower. Close black lens bracket. But in the current situation, no matter how strong Capone Becky is, you have no choice but to take action. Another day later, you resolutely approach Capone Becky. No nonsense, the moment you find the other party, you launch an attack. Close black lens bracket. Your attack is still throwing stones, but after your physical strength increases, the unlimited firepower formed by throwing stones is more appropriate. Countless stones are almost like guns and cannons. Close black lens bracket. Capone Becky was obviously frightened by your attack. Amidst the roar, his size increased dramatically, his figure changed wildly, and a huge castle rose from the ground. Close black lens bracket. You are overjoyed. Capone Becky's performance in the face of a powerful enemy has undoubtedly confirmed that you have become stronger, but what makes you most happy is that this time the stone was thrown on Capone Becky's castle. There was no ripple, but it was damaged. Close black lens bracket. Although the degree of damage is very small, it is still not small when it is added up. There is no doubt that your attack power has tended to break through Capone Becky's defense. This is a very good phenomenon. Close black lens bracket. Facing your onslaught, Capone Becky also launched a terrifying counterattack. A large number of troops, including muskets, pistols, and cannons, appeared all over the huge castle. Close black lens bracket. Boom boom boom. The scene of the battle instantly turned into a sea of fire, just like the outbreak of war. You were already prepared and quickly moved away. However, the castle transformed by Capone Becky still stood in place, motionless and unstoppable. Output firepower. Although your firepower has become stronger, it is still not as good as Capone Becky. Especially after retreating, you begin to be suppressed by the opponent's firepower.
Close black lens bracket. This situation is not beyond your expectation. You have entered the enhanced leg form, flying across the field like a phantom, looking for a fighter. Close black lens bracket. Looking at the huge castle, you suddenly have a whim. If you can't attack from the outside, can you attack from the inside? If you can enter the castle, you will have a huge advantage. Close black lens bracket. With this idea, you perked up, and you suddenly discovered that the weaknesses of the castle fruit were not just speed and movement, but also huge weaknesses inside the castle. Just imagine, if you could break in and wipe out all the troops inside, when the time comes, Capone Becky will turn into a toothless tiger, and you can even defeat the opponent through internal destruction more easily. Just do what you think of, while avoiding the fire. You start to keep approaching Capone Becky. After a while, you finally found the opportunity and approached the huge castle. However, Capone Becky obviously noticed your intention. The moment you approached, the fire suddenly stopped and all the portals in the castle were closed. Close black lens bracket. Did you find it? You frowned and did not stop. After getting completely close to the castle, you launched another attack. However, no matter whether it was fists, giant sticks, or stone throws, there was no way to break through. Close black lens bracket. Among them, because the distance is too close, even the power of throwing stones has been reduced, so that it can no longer break through the defense. At this time, I thought of the sound waves strengthened by the lungs, and without any further words, I went straight in and opened my bloody mouth, roared loudly. Close black lens bracket. Sound waves visible to the naked eye swept out, shaking the entire castle. It seemed to be effective, but unfortunately the damage was still not great, and there was no room to shake the castle. At this time, Capone Becky flexibly opened the distant window and poured firepower at you. You immediately tried to dodge again, but because the distance was too close, you couldn't dodge and was hit by a cannon. Although the damage was not great, it was also let your speed be affected to a certain extent. Close black lens bracket. Capone Becky's firepower poured out again. You made some secret calculations and simply ran away. Close black lens bracket. The simulation is over. Benign changes are obtained. 1 some muscle strength, 2 combat experience, and malignant changes are eliminated. After the simulation, Yang Hao gained some muscle strength. The gastrointestinal strengthening effect is indeed impressive. Even if it is only for a few days, it will improve his physique. But this time, Yang Hao was obviously more concerned about this battle. While integrating combat experience, he began to review. The result of fighting Capone and Becky again was actually a draw. It was similar to what Yang Hao had thought before. After his strength increased again, it would not be as difficult for him to face Capone Becky as before. The main attack method is throwing rocks, which can barely break through the defense, but compared to the firepower, he is still not as good as Capone Becky. The opponent's firepower has indeed become stronger, and with castle defense, it can output smoothly. Unlike him, when the fire comes, he has to dodge. As a result, it is still somewhat difficult to defeat the opponent head-on. But this time, Yang Hao still made a breakthrough in conquering Capone Becky. That is, he realized the huge weakness of Capone Becky's castle. That's the internal weakness. There is no doubt that as he thought in the simulation, as long as he gets inside, it will not be difficult to weaken the opponent's strength or defeat the opponent. The difficulty lies in how to get inside. If you enter from the front, Capone Becky will obviously be alert. So, is there any other way? Chapter 46 A way to defeat Capone Becky. 046 How to defeat Capone Becky. Yang Hao activated his ability and turned into King Kong. As he thought, his furry head suddenly expanded exaggeratedly. With the strengthening of his mind, Yang Hao's thinking suddenly became clear, and inspiration emerged during his thinking. In this state, he quickly came up with an idea. It is obviously difficult to enter Capone Becky's body head-on during a battle. Judging from the previous simulations, Capone Becky must also understand his weaknesses. So there is no slack in this regard. However, Yang Hao thought about it and found that it was not impossible to get into Capone Becky's body. The first one is to become his subordinate and be placed in his body. The second one was to take advantage of the chaos between him and the 5 gangster families to invade. Both of these methods should be easier than entering from the front. But in comparison, the second one has a higher probability. After all, the first one Capone Becky took into his body was usually a subordinate he trusted or had checked. Otherwise, he would not let anyone in casually. One can imagine how difficult it would be for Yang Hao to sneak in. Not to mention he is also a famous bounty criminal. The second one is actually a frontal entry. However, because Capone Becky will focus on other gangsters at that time, the success rate will be much higher. Yang Hao has thought about the specific operation method. It was while Capone Becky was fighting with the 5 gangsters that he quietly approached, then suddenly attacked and forced his way into the castle. In this way, the success rate should not be low, certainly. There is also the possibility of failure, but even if it fails, it doesn't seem to matter. After all, with his current strength, he can already challenge Capone Becky head-on. When the breakthrough fails, it will be nothing more than facing Capone Becky again. And anyway, things seem to be better than if he and Capone Becky were on their own. In that case, let's choose the second option. Yang Hao made another decision. His purpose is not to defeat Capone Becky head-on, but to find a way to defeat Capone Becky and obtain greater benefits. Now that he can take advantage of the other party's weaknesses, Yang Hao will naturally not be pretentious. A new simulation begins. You continue to use your intestines and stomach to strengthen your cultivation, and silently wait for the day when the gangs collide completely. The second day, the third day, time flies by, and it's the seventh day, close black lens bracket. The security in Chugu town suddenly became tighter, and Yellen led the Marines to dispatch. You know, the conflict between Capone Becky and the gang is about to officially happen, close black lens bracket. Sure enough, when you come to a territory of the Capone family, you see the 5 gangsters gathered together. Except for some of them wearing suits, the rest of them, although wearing different clothes, also have a gloomy and ruthless temperament. These people gathered together, there are thousands of people out there. On the opposite side, Capone Becky is standing alone, facing thousands of troops, but his expression remains unchanged, and he is smoking a cigar carelessly, close black lens bracket. You nod secretly. At this time, Capone Becky does have the demeanor of a gangster godfather. No wonder he was able to stand out later and become one of the pirate supernovas, close black lens bracket. When the 5 major gangs unite, it looks like they have a large number of people, but in fact, the power gap between them and Capone Becky is still huge. What happened next was not beyond Yang Hao's expectation. When the roar rose, the 5 gangs did not take advantage at all, and were directly suppressed by Capone Becky's terrifying firepower, close black lens bracket. As a bystander, you realize with a wry smile that Capone Becky has unlimited firepower compared to you. After transforming into a huge castle, he is like a war fortress, indestructible and with terrifying firepower. You didn't have time to sigh, so you quickly took the opportunity to approach Capone Becky, but soon, you found that the situation was somewhat different from what you imagined, close black lens bracket. Whether it is before or after the transformation, there is no one within a radius of tens of meters of Capone Becky. If anyone comes close, he will be annihilated first. This also leads to the fact that if you want to get close to Capone Becky will definitely be discovered by the other party, close black lens bracket. It seems that Capone Becky is always on guard against being approached by people approaching the castle. After all, even if ordinary people enter the castle, it may cause chaos. But at this time, you have no way to retreat, so you have to bite the bullet and continue to approach, close black lens bracket. Fortunately, the firepower of the 5 gangs finally attracted Capone Becky's attention for you, and your sudden outburst finally caught Capone Becky by surprise. Close black lens bracket. Same as last time, you approached the castle transformed by Capone Becky and tried to break through. Unfortunately, Capone Becky reacted in time and closed the door in your direction. You were not discouraged and directly sent out roaring sound waves, close black lens bracket. This time, you clearly heard a scream coming from inside the castle. The invisible sound waves still penetrated the wall, injuring Capone Becky's men. Close black lens bracket. But after the roar, Capone Becky also reacted and poured some of his firepower towards you. You reacted quickly to strengthen your feet, jumped on the castle to dodge, and easily avoided Capone Becky's firepower. At this time, you discovered another weakness of Capone Becky, that is, when you get close to the castle, Capone Becky's firepower cannot lock you down so easily. Firstly, there is a castle next to you. If you are not careful, Capone Becky will accidentally injure himself. Secondly, you are very fast, jumping up and down on the surface of the castle building like a monkey. Capone Becky's firepower wants to lock on. The difficulty has greatly increased. At least it will be difficult to form a mass fire of hundreds or thousands of people. Such a discovery makes your face light up. Only then do you realize that Capone Becky, who possesses the castle fruit, is not as difficult to deal with as you imagined. Of course, this is also because you have the opportunity to simulate. In reality, there are no opportunities to contend with strong enemies again and again. Many times, a single defeat is all it takes. As you learn more about the castle fruit, you become more confident in defeating Capone Becky. After discovering something, you did not rush to deal with Capone Becky again. Instead, you jumped into a corner and tried your best to defeat Capone Becky. Evade fire. After a while, Capone Becky looked at you who was still alive and kicking with a gloomy face. He gradually realized that there was no way to easily kill you running around on the surface of the castle. So he made a prompt decision and changed the target. First, he used Annihilate surrounding gangsters with firepower close black lens bracket. You watched silently, not stopping you, but from time to time, you used roaring sound waves to injure Capone Becky's men who appeared all over the castle. Capone Becky hated you so much, but there was nothing you could do about it. Close black lens bracket. The battle situation at the scene has reached a stalemate. Chapter 47 Capone Becky's weakness is lack of physical strength. 047 Capone Becky's weakness is lack of physical strength. The battle situation at the scene has reached a stalemate. In this regard, you have no good solution. You just stick close to the castle and send out roaring sound waves from time to time. Close black lens bracket. It's just that I don't know if Capone Becky's men have decreased or if the other party has transferred. You cling to the castle and send out sound waves, and the screams coming from inside are getting less and less. Close black lens bracket. From the fact that Capone Becky's firepower has not decreased, you will understand. It seems that Capone Becky deliberately transferred his subordinates, resulting in a sharp decrease in the number of your sonic kills. Close black lens bracket. Understanding this, you no longer use roaring sound waves, but instead use heart strengthening to activate the second level of power, trying to destroy the castle. After your physical strength has greatly increased, your brute strength has also greatly increased in power, just like throwing stones. Especially in the second gear state, the steaming clay pot fist can actually hit the castle slightly, causing slight cracks. Close black lens bracket. However, such an attack is obviously within the range that Capone Becky can withstand. After observing it, you find that a simple brute force attack seems to be less effective than the unlimited firepower caused by throwing stones. After thinking about it, you still stay away from the castle and use stone throwing to attack. The main reason is that the heart strengthening time cannot last long. If you become weak at close range, Capone Becky will inevitably take advantage of it. Next, with your help, the gangsters' firepower suddenly became stronger, and they were able to compete with Capone Becky's firepower. Close black lens bracket. But Capone Becky's firepower is not only dense and huge, but also has top-notch battery life, almost non-stop. So, not long after, you and the gangsters were suddenly suppressed by the firepower of Capone Becky. During this period, Capone Becky also tried to kill you first, but you were hidden in the crowd and your figure was swift, so it was still difficult to lock on. Having no choice but to continue targeting other gangsters, Capone Becky plans to defeat all the gangsters and then deal with you. In less than a moment, Capone Becky's idea will be successful. Although the gang members gathered this time were in the thousands, they were still not enough to watch under Capone Becky's terrifying energy. Seeing this scene, you shook your head secretly, feeling that this simulation was probably fruitless. But you don't end there, but plan to fight Capone Becky until you die. Close black lens bracket. Speaking of which, except for the first few simulations, you were able to escape from Capone Becky in the subsequent simulations, and even escaped unscathed later on. But now, you suddenly want to see, with Capone Becky, what will happen to the end of the battle. Will you still die? If you pay the price with your life, Capone Becky will not be unscathed, right? So, how far can you fight Capone Becky? Close black lens bracket. With this idea, you are even more curious. For you, it doesn't matter whether you die or not. The most important thing is to gain something. Close black lens bracket. And now, you suddenly realize that even if you die, if you can test the degree of damage you will cause to Capone Becky after your desperate efforts, it will be worth it. Close black lens bracket. In this way, after the 5 major gangs were wiped out, you did not escape, but stayed in place and fought to the death with Capone Becky. Close black lens bracket. An hour later, your injuries reached the limit and you fell into a pool of blood. However, you did not lose consciousness, but held on tightly, staring at the huge castle transformed by Capone Becky. Close black lens bracket. The castle at this moment is no longer as majestic as before. Instead, it is full of damage and looks like a dilapidated building. It seems that Capone Becky has recovered his human form after discovering that you were dying. Capone Becky, who has returned to his human form, seems to have suffered a bloody head, his face is pale, and he is sweating profusely. His figure seems a little unstable, he looks very embarrassed, and he also looks like he has been severely injured. Open black lens bracket. Seeing Capone Becky like this, you will die with a smile on your face. Close black lens bracket. The simulation ends, producing benign changes, 1 muscle strength, 2 combat experience, eliminating malignant deformation, and strengthening the heart to enter the second level of hidden damage. Close black lens bracket. As the simulation ended, a wave of combat experience surged into Yang Hao's mind again, and a corresponding body memory was formed. Yang Hao didn't pay too much attention, but silently watched the simulation content this time. How to say? This time the simulation was still not going well. He still failed to successfully enter Capone Becky's body and destroy it from inside the castle. This also resulted in his subsequent attacks still not having much effect. But when he saw the final simulation content, Yang Hao suddenly became energetic. This simulation was indeed not smooth, but it was not without gain. Combat experience is on the one hand, and on the other hand, he seems to have discovered another weakness of the castle fruit. No, to be more precise, it's Capone Becky's weakness. This weakness is common among people with paramecia abilities. That is, lack of physical strength. You must know that most of the use of devil fruit abilities requires stamina. This is true even for animal-type fruit abilities. It's just that the consumption of the animal fruit ability is very small, almost negligible. In addition, the animal fruit ability can greatly enhance the physical strength, so it is rare for users with the animal fruit ability to suffer from physical exhaustion. But the abilities of other series are different. Both Logia and Paramecia consume a lot of physical energy, especially Paramecia. The stronger the ability, the greater the consumption. For this point, you can refer to the results of surgery. Because his ability to perform surgery is so strong, he often suffers from physical exhaustion. So, does Capone Becky have this phenomenon? Of course. And it is estimated that he is more serious than Luo. After all, Capone Becky's castle ability is considered very powerful, and it is not much worse than the surgery fruit ability. But he himself is obviously not as good as Luo, and Luo is not a physical practitioner, but a sword practitioner. In general, although Capone Becky's castle fruit is powerful, it obviously cannot last long.
If Yang Hao could persist in this simulation for another half an hour, maybe the person who fell would be Capone Becky. Because if your physical strength is exhausted, Capone Becky's castle fruit ability will definitely be greatly reduced by then, and you may not even be able to use it. This point is actually the key to Hailu Stone's ability to seal the abilities of Esper. The Sea Tower Stone does not really seal the ability of the ability user, but makes the ability user enter a weak and powerless state, making it impossible to actively use the ability. Realizing this, Yang Hao couldn't help but his eyes lit up. In this simulation, if the injuries were not too serious and the physical endurance was simply compared, I am afraid that it would not be a problem for him to fight for 3 days and 3 nights in a row. So, if he wants to defeat Capone Becky, can he also make a fuss about his physical strength? After thinking about it for a moment, Yang Hao's heart began to beat. Gotta do it, Chapter 48 First Kill, Oriole? 048 First Kill, Oriole? Another simulation. Capone Becky and the 5 gangsters clash again, and you are waiting for the opportunity. Close black lens bracket. An hour later, it became clear that the 5 major gangs could no longer stand it. You finally took action, using rocks and remote support. Close black lens bracket. But under your control, the stone-throwing power is not outstanding. It only restrains Capone Becky's firepower, making it impossible for him to suppress it quickly. Close black lens bracket. Another hour passed, and the 5 major gangs were completely wiped out. You were the only one left in the huge battlefield. Capone Becky finally noticed your existence and began to pour firepower on you. You had already anticipated this situation and started fighting Capone Becky calmly. Close black lens bracket. This time, you changed your previous style and no longer fought desperately with Capone Becky, but started a protracted war with him. The heart is not strengthened, only the arms and legs are strengthened throughout the process. While dodging Capone Becky's cannon fire, he continues to attack with throwing stones. Close black lens bracket. This lasted for an hour. Capone Becky seemed to be impatient. He even cancelled the castle transformation, turned his feet into tank tracks, and tried to leave. When you saw this, you were all happy, because you knew that Capone Becky's physical strength is no longer enough. And this is exactly your purpose this time, to exhaust Capone Becky's physical strength, thereby greatly reducing his ability. Close black lens bracket. Seeing Capone Becky escape, you understood and quickly launched a pursuit. Although you also suffered a lot of damage at this time, you were also excited, throwing stones, roaring, and attacking Capone Becky one after another. Close black lens bracket. Capone Becky is obviously not as fast as you, and he is soon caught up. In desperation, he can only turn into the castle boss again and start a battle with you. You didn't say anything, and immediately started fighting with Capone Becky again. Sometimes, even under fire, you still held Capone Becky back. Close black lens bracket. You know, Capone Becky can't hold on much longer. Close black lens bracket. Sure enough, at a certain moment, Capone Becky returned to his human form again and ran away with a pale face. You laughed loudly, instantly entered the heart strengthening, and chased after him, and soon caught up with Capone Becky. With a roar, the invisible sound wave directly knocked the other person to the ground. When the other person covered his ears and screamed, he raised his fist as big as a clay pot and directly blew the opponent's head open. So far, you have finally killed Capone Becky, a powerful enemy. Close black lens bracket. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. A large number of Marines surrounded you, and countless pistols and muskets opened fire instantly. Under the hail of bullets, your injuries worsened. The worst thing is that after the heart strengthening time passed, you fell into weakness. Close black lens bracket. A familiar figure quickly attacked. It was Marine Colonel Yellen from Chugu town. It turns out that this money-grubbing Yellen has also been paying attention to the battlefield here. Close black lens bracket. If it were Capone Becky, suppressing the 5 major gangs with unparalleled firepower, forget it, but now, it is obviously a lose-lose situation. You killed Capone Becky, but you were also seriously injured. Close black lens bracket. So Yellen made a decisive decision and became a fisherman, and he succeeded. Close black lens bracket. Suffering severe injuries, you fell in front of the half-swordsman Colonel Marine. Close black lens bracket. Finally, you closed your eyes with a bitter smile. Close black lens bracket. The simulation ends. Obtain benign changes, 1 muscle strength, 2 combat experience, eliminate malignant changes, 1 heart strengthens the hidden damage caused by the second gear. Close black lens bracket. Looking at the simulation results this time, Yang Hao couldn't laugh or cry. His idea is indeed feasible. Lack of physical strength is indeed Capone Becky's weakness. It can even be said to be his biggest weakness. Taking advantage of this weakness, Yang Hao indeed completed the first kill on him. It's just that the ending of the simulation is not good. He was unexpectedly tricked by money-grubbing Yellen. However, Yang Hao thought about it and felt relieved. This ending is not surprising. Yellen serves as Marine Colonel of the Marine Division in Chugu town. There was no way he wouldn't know about such a large-scale gang fight taking place in Chugu town. He didn't show up in the previous simulations entirely because he didn't have the confidence to deal with Capone Becky and Yang Hao. But this time, both Yang Hao and Capone Becky suffered losses. It would be strange if the other party didn't pick it up. There are only wrong names, not wrong nicknames. Yellen, who can be called a money grubber, is obviously very shrewd. This can also be seen from Yang Hao's previous simulations of contact with him. After coming back to his senses, Yang Hao was not depressed, but smiled. But anyway, I have found a way to break the situation. I just need to test it a few more times and then I can officially take action. The corner of Yang Hao's mouth raised slightly. Again, in the simulated world, he is not afraid of death. As long as the death is worthwhile, it is considered a success. And this time, he obviously succeeded. Taking advantage of his lack of physical strength, he was indeed able to turn defeat into victory and kill Capone Becky. Of course, this time he was a little unprepared, so that after he killed Capone Becky, he himself was seriously injured. Coupled with the fact that he was so immortal, it happened to be the period of weakness after the second level of heart strengthening. Otherwise, even if he loses to Yellen and others, he may still be able to escape. But with experience, the next step will be easier. Yang Hao looked back and found that he could have taken away Capone Becky with less damage. Especially the heart enhancement, he doesn't need to use it at all. That is, when he finally saw that Capone Becky was completely exhausted, Yang Hao was so excited that he used the heart enhancement. Otherwise, he could definitely kill the opponent, it would just take a little more time. That way, if Yellen brings people to kill him later, he can still break out of the siege. Of course, there is an easier way to avoid being missed by Yellen. That is to kill Yellen first before the gang fight. In this case, even if he was seriously injured in the battle with Capone Becky later, no one would come to pick him up. In short, the current situation is that he has completely found a way to solve Capone Becky. As long as he improves it, he can gain the maximum gain at the minimum cost. Thinking of this, Yang Hao smiled again and started the simulation. Although I have thought of a way, I still have to simulate it several times. Only when he is sure that everything is absolutely foolproof will he really take action. That's all. The number of Baileys on Yang Hao's hand continued to decrease. After many simulations, the last 10 million Baileys were quickly spent. After spending the money, Yang Hao no longer simulated, but practiced silently in reality, waiting for the gang fight to come. Finally, on the 7th day, the news of the fight between Capone Becky and the 5 major gangs arrived as promised. Chapter 49 Annihilation of the Marine Division. 049 Annihilate the Marine Branch on the 7th day when Yang Hao arrived in the sea near Chugu town. Yang Hao learned from his subordinates the upcoming news of Capone Becky and the 5 major gangs. Let's go to Chugu town, Yang Hao immediately issued the order. The pirate men suddenly became excited. Captain, are you going to deal with those gangsters? Along the way, Yang Hao took them and robbed them all. Now that Yang Hao is paying attention to the gang war, they subconsciously think that Yang Hao is planning to get a share of the gang war. This is indeed Yang Hao's purpose, but right now, they are not in a hurry to deal with Capone Becky, but want to go to another place first. Go to the Marine branch in town. Hearing the destination mentioned by Yang Hao, the pirates were confused again. Yang Hao smiled. That's right. He was not in a hurry to go to the scene of the fight between Capone Becky and the 5 gangsters, but planned to go to the Marine branch in Chugu town first. The purpose of this is naturally to eliminate the possibility of Yellen being left behind. Originally, Yang Hao took Yellen's 100 million Baileys and planned to let the other party go. In fact, if it is not necessary, Yang Hao actually does not want to have so many conflicts with Marine. After all, if you are not careful, the bounty will increase again. This is not a good thing for Yang Hao, who wants to be the strongest. So he had already planned to ignore Yellen's side, although there were still millions of Baileys in the Marine branch. But for Yang Hao, who was about to destroy the gang and dominate West Blue, it is nothing. At least there was no need to distract him from Capone Becky. But now, knowing that Yellen wants to cause trouble, Yang Hao naturally can't let it go. This time I went there with the intention of destroying the other party, and even directly destroyed the Marine branch in Chugu town. And this is also the best plan that Yang Hao came up with after simulating it several times. Under Yang Hao's order, 6 pirate ships quickly docked. Yang Hao did not wait for the pirates, left a word, and jumped away directly. I'll take the first step. You can just go to the Marine branch to clean up the mess. Upon hearing this, the pirates immediately looked at each other, dumbfounded. Yang Hao is planning to clear the Marine branch alone. Forget it if it's another town, but this is the Marine branch in Chugu town. These pirates also know the difference between the Marine branch of this important pass town and the Marine branch of other towns. One is that the weapons and equipment in other towns can only be regarded as average, almost all of them are discarded products from the Grand Line Marine headquarters. But the Marine branch in Chugu town is different. Their weapons and equipment are almost as good as the Marine headquarters, and the number of people will be larger. The most important thing is that the Marine colonels in other towns are just branch Marine colonels. But Colonel Marine of Chugu town is actually Colonel Marine of our headquarters. The military rank of the headquarters is 3 levels higher than that of the Marine branch. In other words, Colonel Marine, the headquarters of Chugu town, is 3 levels higher than Colonel Marine in other towns. Needless to say, there is no need to say much about the strength. Faced with such a Marine branch, Yang Hao actually wants to solo. The pirates were shocked.
but they did not dare to disobey Yang Hao's order, so they could only go there anxiously. However, what the pirates didn't know was that the Marine branch in Chugu town had been attacked several times by Yang Hao. Coming here this time is just to turn the illusory simulation content into reality. Use your feet to strengthen and run like crazy. The reason why Yang Hao left the pirates behind was actually not just because the pirates were slow. In addition, there are reasons for Yellen and others. Through the simulation, he already knew that because of the large-scale fight between Capone Becky and the 5 gangs, Yellen would also take Marine out after receiving the message. So in that simulation, it will appear in time. And Yang Hao rushed over, naturally to block the other party. Everything is calculated. Next, there were no surprises. Before Yellen could take people out, Yang Hao quickly arrived at the Marine branch like a gust of wind. Looking at the relatively magnificent building in front of him, a coldness gradually appeared on Yang Hao's face. At this time, Yellen was indeed leading a brigade of Marines and was hurrying out of the gate of the Marine branch. He immediately saw the golden-haired figure standing at the door. "Huh? Are you a vicious ape?" Seeing Yang Hao, Yellen was startled at first, and then her expression changed drastically. The Marines behind him were all shocked and there was a commotion. "It's the vicious ape Yang Hao. Looking like this, it must be him. The vicious ape with a bounty of 50 million, Yang Hao." Looking at Yang Hao, who had a cold face and exuded a fierce look, Yellen's heart suddenly sank to the bottom. How did this vicious ape come to Chugu town, and why did it suddenly appear here? What is going on? An ominous premonition arose in Yellen's heart. And next, as if confirming Yellen's premonition, the ape exuding a fierce aura suddenly waved its clenched hands. Unlimited firepower. Boohoo! An extremely strong sound of breaking through the air suddenly exploded. Yellen's pupils shrank, the Marines were stunned. Stone. Ah! As soon as they recognized what Yang Hao had thrown, they suddenly screamed. The power of the finely broken stones was astonishing, like a splashing shotgun, suddenly shooting towards them. In an instant, blood surged. Dozens of Marines fell down screaming. Some couldn't even scream and fell to the ground. The leader Yellen's face changed wildly, and he immediately took out the long sword at his waist and waved it. Several stones were chopped down by him, but the figure still retreated step by step. "Hide quickly and find cover." Yellen reacted, turned around and shouted, but before she finished shouting, she froze. The large group of troops he brought out were all wiped out in the blink of an eye. 200 to 300 people were wiped out in a flash by the opponent's wave. This is simply an instant kill. Yellen was stunned. Yang Hao was not surprised. Before his physical strength was greatly enhanced, he could easily destroy the Marine branch's troops with unlimited firepower. But now, his strength has increased greatly, but the opponent only brought part of the troops. Under the circumstances of the ebb and flow, it would be strange if these troops could not be killed instantly. As for Yellen, Yang Hao didn't bother to use the giant stick to fight with the opponent. With his current strength, he had already reached the point where he could defeat 10 enemies with one force. So this time, just by using the slinging technique, he crushed this half-step swordsman to death. In less than a moment, Yellen, a Marine colonel from his headquarters, also fell into a pool of blood riddled with holes. Later, people from the Marine branch heard the commotion and rushed out to provide support, but the result was predictable. So, when Yang Hao's pirates arrived, what they saw was a scene like this. Blood flowed like a river, Marine fell to the ground, and the entire Marine branch was completely wiped out. "Take care of this, I'll leave first." After leaving a few words to the confused pirates, Yang Hao drifted away. Next, it's time to focus on solving Capone Becky, Chapter 50 War of Attrition. 050 War of Attrition. Boom boom boom. Not long after, Yang Hao arrived at the scene of the fight. In the distance, he heard the roar of artillery fire. When we arrived at the scene, it was almost deafening, and everything we could see was filled with gunpowder smoke and fire pollution. One of the two warring parties is a large gang force composed of thousands of people. On the other side, there was only one person. Wearing a black suit and smoking a cigar calmly, he suppressed thousands of people and made them extremely embarrassed. Yang Hao chuckled. How arrogant, of course, Capone Becky also has the qualifications to be arrogant. If he hadn't disrupted the situation, it is estimated that after this battle, Capone Becky would have truly become the godfather of the gang and unified the West Blue underworld. But now, haha. Yang Hao didn't say anything. As soon as his arm became thicker, he crushed the stone and shot it towards Capone Becky like a shotgun. Unlimited firepower. Boo-hoo-hoo. Amid the terrifying sound of breaking through the air. Finely broken stones are packed with power that is stronger than ordinary bullets and shot away. What? The sudden attack surprised Capone Becky. His reaction was also very fast. After realizing that this was not an attack that he could withstand now, he immediately activated the Castle Fruit ability and transformed. Castle full-size Big Boss. There was a boom. A huge castle rises from the ground. Yang Hao's unlimited firepower was immediately easily resisted. What is that? City, castle, OMG. The people from the 5 major gangs were all shocked when they saw this. Yang Hao smiled. This situation is just what he wants.
After so many simulations, Yang Hao already knew how to consume Capone Becky's physical strength. In other words, it is the state Capone Becky is in that consumes more energy. There is no doubt that the amount of physical energy consumed by hiding one's strength within one's body is not much, or even negligible. Only when it turns into such a huge castle will Capone Becky's physical strength be exhausted. Despite how majestic this castle is, Capone Becky can't actually last for 2 hours. And this is naturally the reason why Yang Hao directly attacked Capone Becky this time. The purpose is to force him to use this ultimate move of transforming into a castle as soon as possible. Where did the monkey come from? Die. After Capone Becky transformed, he withstood Yang Hao's bullet-like attack and immediately roared. Boom boom boom. In an instant, astonishing firelight erupted from everywhere in the castle, and terrifying artillery fire poured towards Yang Hao. Seeing this, Yang Hao made a movement with his hands, then strengthened his legs and quickly avoided it. Brush, brush, brush. His movement speed at this time cannot be compared with the Marine 6th form, but it is also extremely flexible, enough to avoid Capone Becky's artillery bombardment. Huh? Who is this? Wait a minute, is it the murderous ape Yang Hao? It should be him. Why does he appear here? When Capone Becky attacked Yang Hao, the 5 gangsters also noticed Yang Hao. Looking at the ape-like appearance, they quickly identified Yang Hao's identity. There is no doubt that it is the recently rising, vicious ape, Yang Hao. What just puzzled them was how could this vicious ape appear here and directly attack Capone Becky. Naturally, Capone Becky was also puzzled. When he launched an artillery offensive against Yang Hao, he gradually came to his senses. Isn't this the target that the family asked you to kill some time ago? It was just that the last time in Bowen Town, he failed, so he ignored it. But what he never expected was that when he was at war with the 5 major gangs, this vicious ape suddenly ran out. What does he want? Capone Becky had a sullen face, but did not stop attacking. Are you a ferocious ape? I let you run away last time, but I didn't expect you to dare to appear in front of me. In that case, I'll kill you by the way. Boom boom boom. There was constant artillery fire and smoke billowing. But soon, Capone Becky frowned. He found that his offensive was fast and fierce, but he could never hit Yang Hao. This guy, on the contrary, attacked while dodging the attack. Those rocks that were harder than bullets hit him. Although they didn't cause much damage, they also made Capone Becky feel a pain. Damn it. Capone Becky cursed secretly. But at this time, Yang Hao's face was even more smiling. Capone Becky's artillery offensive is still very terrifying. Even if he is nimble and fast, it is not easy to dodge. But the problem is, he has played against Capone Becky 8 times if not 10 times. Gaining combat experience after simulation is no joke. Although I didn't feel the changes in my body, it worked immediately in actual combat. At this moment, Yang Hao has only one feeling, that is, with ease. That's right. Just do it with ease. There was continuous artillery fire, but Yang Hao was able to dodge it with ease, and was even able to continuously use stones to attack Capone Becky. Of course, this also benefits from Yang Hao's skillful use of abilities. Sometimes his feet are strengthened, sometimes his arms are strengthened, switching freely and smoothly. Don't be dazed. Call me quickly. Yes, the vicious ape is obviously on our side now. I still have a chance. Boys, kill Capone Becky. When Yang Hao and Capone Becky were fighting, the 5 gangsters around them finally reacted. Especially the gang bosses. Originally, they were suppressed by Capone Becky, and they were already complaining, and even wanted to quit. But now Yang Hao's appearance has undoubtedly brought them a turn for the better. Even though Capone Becky turned into a terrifying castle, they decided to continue dealing with Capone Becky. In fact, this is also because they have no retreat. Even if you can escape, you can't escape the territory. If they lose to Capone Becky now, the foundation they have worked so hard to build will be destroyed. Boom boom boom. Boo hoo hoo. Thousands of people launched an offensive, which was equally earth-shattering. Guns, pistols, and even cannons were brought, and this situation was actually arranged by Yang Hao. In the previous simulation, Yang Hao tried to wait until the 5 major gangs fought with Capone Becky before taking action. But in this case, without the help of the 5 major gangs, Yang Hao would have a very difficult time consuming Capone Becky. Later he discovered that the 5 major gangs could not be destroyed so quickly. He should even take the initiative to divert Capone Becky's attention and let the 5 gangsters attack Capone Becky as much as possible. In this way, those attacks will add up to a large number, which will also greatly speed up the time when Capone Becky is low on energy. In short, this is a war of attrition.